Watch this,
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome everybody today to the January 31st, 2023 Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County meeting. We will start off with a moment of silence for our first responders and members of the armed forces, and followed by an invocation by the Reverend Dr. Anna V. Copeland of the Community Church of Vero Beach. I would ask everybody to rise and observe that moment of silence.
We thank you, Holy One, for the start of this beautiful new day, for the privilege of living in Florida and Indian River County, for the beauty and wonder of creation and all the earth. We thank you for the vast resources that are entrusted to our care in this county, the human resources of people who have gathered here from all over the world, the influx of folks who have come from Maryland and New York and Philadelphia and all manner of places, as well as nations around the world, and those who have been here for generations. We thank you for our diversity of the folks who have been entrusted with the most means. We ask that you would grant them wisdom to be stewards of those resources that are faithful. We thank you for those who are seeking shelter here. We ask for wisdom in caring for the most vulnerable in our population. And we thank you that you are with us as we seek to discern the care for every hardworking folk, first responders, teachers, folks who work at the hospital, those who put food on the table and make sure the wheels stay on the track. Holy One, we are a diverse people of faith practice. We are Christian and Muslim and Jew, spiritual but not religious. We are Protestant and Catholic and Baha'i. And so we ask that you would bless these county commissioners, each and every one today. We ask that you would protect their families, grant them good health, love for their circle of care, support for the sacrifices they're making to serve us, and for all gathered here in this room who represent all who cannot be here today. We ask that for those of us entrusted to leadership, that you would help us to lead wisely and faithfully with the gifts entrusted to us, mindful of the needs of all entrusted to our care, that we might enjoy the fruits of this beautiful land in which we live, and that our neighbors to the north might not be too jealous of our weather as we celebrate the good news that you have brought to all this land. We ask all these things in your holy name. Amen.
Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance led by our County Attorney, Mr. Reingold.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. All right. Moving on. Commissioners' additions, deletions to the agenda and emergency items. I know you've all seen, but 5C has been deleted. It was a presentation for the Education Foundation. That's been deleted till a later date. They weren't able to be here today. And I would like to, I'm sorry.
Oh, additionally, Commissioner, staff had asked that 8G be pulled from the agenda. I don't know if that's
I was going to wait to do that under consent, but we can do it now.
Yeah, it's actually not going to be pulled for discussion. It's going to be pulled off the agenda.
Okay.
And deleted. I would like to note on that, I want to thank, and the City of Vero Beach thanks, Dave Rattray and Dave Johnson. This was a quick agreement we had tried to throw quickly together to help Breeze Airways serve the City of Vero Beach. The FAA determined that this wasn't going to be the solution to the problem, so the city had to go another direction, but the city was very appreciative that we had tried to work together and solve the problem.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that'll be a good thing. And Commissioners, I'd like to move 7A up, the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. Move that up right after we do presentations. And then I have a request from the Solid Waste Disposal District and Mr. Mehta to move the solid waste up, to move item 15 up to the beginning of the meeting. We'll do that after we do the consent agenda. So that's what I'd like to do. I'll take a motion or any changes that anybody would like to make. There- We have a motion by Commissioner Fleischer to approve as amended, second by Commissioner Lohr. Any other comments? Anybody from the public wish to comment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioners. All right. We're going to move on to proclamations and presentations. This is always a good thing. We'll start with 5A. It'll be presented by myself. It's a presentation of proclamation honoring Sandra M. Giebert on her retirement from the Indian River County Board of County Commissioners, Department of General Services, the Library Services Division. Ms. Giebert, come on up. It's an honor for me to read this to you for your services rendered, especially in the library. My mother-in-law was a librarian, and it's not as easy as people think. So she was a librarian for the school system, but either way, it's a very unheralded job, but it's a great job, and we got to have him. So thank you for doing it. So let me go ahead and read this, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Zito. After I get done reading this, he's got some other stuff to do for you. This is a proclamation honoring Sandra M. Giebert on her retirement from Indian River County Board of County Commissioners, Department of General Services, Library Services Division. Whereas Sandra M. Giebert retired from the Indian River County Library Services Division effective January 25th, 2023, and whereas Sandra M. Giebert began her career with Indian River County on June 10th, 2002 as a Librarian 1 and remained in that position until her retirement. And whereas Sandra M. Giebert has served this county and the public with distinction and selflessness, providing patrons with valuable information and help they were seeking during her almost 21-year career at the Indian River County Main Library. Her work was appreciated by her employer, citizens, and co-workers alike. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the Board applauds Sandra M. Giebert's efforts on behalf of the county and wishes to express their appreciation for the dedicated service she has given to Indian River County, and be it further proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners and staff extend their heartfelt wishes for success in her future endeavors, adopted this 31st day of January 2023, and signed by myself as chairman of the Board of County Commissioners. Congratulations, and thank you for your service. And Mr. Zito.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sandra, I want to personally thank you for your hard work over the last 20 years. I recall every time I went up on the second floor to meet with the directors, you were prominently placed at the center of the circulation or information desk and helped many, many people as on the front lines. So we do appreciate it. And with that, your retirement just happens to coincide with your the issuance of your 20-year service award. So I'd like to personally present that to you now. Take a picture. It says a certificate of appreciation awarded to Sandra Giebert in appreciation of 20 years of dedicated service with Indian River County Board of County Commissioners, signed by myself. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. All right, next we're going to move on to one that might be a pretty big deal. So, this is a presentation of proclamation honoring Patrick White on his retirement from the Indian River County Sheriff's Office, and this will be presented by Commissioner Fleischer. Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, it's, as Dad says, there's Patrick White. And he brings the league. Did Mandy arrive yet? Mandy? Lonnie? You new bosses. Pat, didn't think this was going to happen just at this time. You've been a very special member of the Indian River County Sheriff's Office. We met, I believe, you had a white shield on, and you were the guy that, no, in deference to all the others, there is quite a few folks here that are wearing the same uniform. When they responded, we were a team. But when Pat White responded, you knew the end game was in sight. I want you to know that. You are an unbelievable law enforcement officer. You have been a great addition to the community, a great addition to the law enforcement community. As you rose, let me pause for a minute. I seem to recall your supervisory input, even as a white shield, when some retired New York City guy at 2 o'clock in the morning requested a bus, and dispatch laid silent for a moment. This guy was asking for a bus. And a cool, calm, and collective Pat White gets on the radio and says, I think he wants an ambulance at the scene. Well, thank you for the translation. We appreciate it. But as you rose to sergeant, lieutenant, captain, you were exemplary. I'll say that because I was a part of it, but then witnessed it, speak with your colleagues. You're the type of guy that doesn't ask what you would not personally do yourself. And at times you just did it anyway because it was the right thing to do. One of the patches you wore, I think it was one with an asterisk on it. I believe you should have a dozen of those. You are what law enforcement is made of. A great role model, a great example, and that's why you rose to the rank of captain. And with that, I hope that you don't go too far. I've asked you about your plans. Really didn't get a straight answer, by the way. Your new boss, well, she's got a honey-do list, and it was extensive. It's on a thumb drive instead of a little written note. So you have a lot of things to do. But whatever you do, don't fray away from us, because you're a very valuable individual, a very benevolent individual, a very caring individual, and dedicated, and you're well thought of. Obviously, there's a sea of uniforms here that I don't know if did you give him a few bucks? I mean, this is probably the largest law enforcement crowd for a retirement that we have ever seen here at the commission. So you're well admired and well appreciated. And with that, I want to go on to present this proclamation, which is honoring Patrick White on his retirement from Indian River County Sheriff's Office. Whereas Captain Patrick White is retiring from the Indian River County Sheriff's Office effective February 10th, 2023. And whereas Patrick began his law enforcement career in 1997 and has served with distinction for 26 years. Whereas over his tenure, Patrick has served in many capacities, including deputy and canine deputy, as well as supervisor in the ranks of sergeant, lieutenant, and captain. And whereas Patrick received many commendations for his efforts during the stellar career, including the Exceptional Duty Award, Honorable Service Award, Medal of Honor, Combat Cross, and Law Enforcement Deputy of the Year. Whereas Patrick has worked diligently under 4 sheriffs to protect and serve the public and citizens of Indian River County and the state of Florida. Whereas Patrick's vast knowledge and extraordinary leadership have already been greatly appreciated by Sheriff Flowers and all those who have had the honor of serving with him. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the Board applauds the weighty contributions that Captain Patrick White has made in the citizenry of Indian River County over the highly successful law enforcement career, and wishes him a happy and prosperous retirement. This is duly adopted the 31st day of January 2023, and it is signed by all 5 county commissioners and a former sheriff as well. Thank you. Good guy. Well, Pat, what do we say? Proclamation says the 10th. The 10th. So you have about 10 days, you know,
Mess things up.
things, you know what I'm saying? Okay.
Try not to end up in handcuffs between now and then.
That is a worthy.
Well, Pat, here we are. And you are speechless.
I thank you guys. It's an honor. It's an honor to stand before you. It's an honor to stand with my colleagues I work with. It's an honor to have everybody here at the show house. It's unbelievable. It's hard to, it's a chapter I got to close and move on to some other ones, and I'm excited about it. But it's somber sweet because this is my family behind me, my family next to me.
Well, they're not going anywhere, and we don't want you to go anywhere either. Chief, or anybody else want to say anything?
Sure.
Looks like
Commissioner
Pat.
Moore, go ahead. You're not, let me do.
Sure, and thank you. And Pat, congratulations. Obviously, we worked side by side for a little over 12 years. And I was thinking, while Commissioner Fletcher was chatting about you, one thing that stands out for sure in our time together, not only the loyalty and the dedication to the agency, but the braveness that this man has. This man has been involved in situations that most of us in this room have never or will never be involved in, and did it with integrity and very, very brave man. And I say thank you for your service and good luck in retirement.
Pat, I would tell you, I remember when you showed up. I was obviously on a fire truck, and you showed up. I saw this new guy show up. I'd never seen him. I knew most of the deputies in the county. They were all local boys. You come from the little town of Madison up in North Florida. 'Cause your dad was down here, and he was obviously a police officer. But I knew right away there was something special about you. Just seeing you, how you interacted with the public, how you interacted with my crews that were on calls with you, and you could tell that you were a guy that was going to be a big part of the Indian River County Sheriff's Department then and in the future. And obviously you were, and I think you've done one heck of a job. You've had a great career. You've become a good friend, and that's important. But you've done well, and I'm proud of you and glad to be here. Hate to see you leaving, but glad to know you'll still be here in Indian River County hanging out with us. So that's awesome. Commissioner Adams?
Sure. Congratulations, Pat. I think everybody has said what you mean to the community and to the department, and your impact is going to last for years and years beyond your retirement. The only thing I will say, though, is Mandy, good luck. I feel like you're going to need it. but enjoy it. It'll be great for you to be able to spend that time with your family. Congratulations.
Commissioner Moss?
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you so much for your service, and I wish you all the best, you and your family. God bless you, Mandy.
Pat, I had the honor of watching you in action on a few occasions at 4 a.m. serving a warrant. First one in, last one out, concerned about your team, ultimate bravery and professionalism, level-headed. I just can't thank you enough for your service to this county. I'm very proud of you, as I am all of the men and women of the Indian River County Sheriff's Office. Good luck to you in your retirement. I know you'll succeed in your next endeavor.
Mr. Rowland?
Thank you. On behalf of Sheriff Flowers, who couldn't be here and wanted me to explain why he couldn't, he was in Tallahassee yesterday working on some important legislation with the Speaker. And although he escaped it since the spring of 20, he has come down with a case of COVID. So that's the reason he's not here. So it's my honor to be here on his behalf and just say a few things about Pat White. You know, in law enforcement, we often have to wear several hats, that of guardian or protector of the peace, teacher to both community members and other law enforcement officers, and that of being a leader. And perhaps no one has worn all those hats oftentimes concurrently than Captain Pat White. I often say, and I'm sure everyone in the room will agree with the sentiment, that I have slept very well for the past quarter century plus, knowing that Pat White was either on duty or on call, which he's been for the past quarter century plus. And so how will we as a community and as an agency go on without that protection? And I'm glad you asked, because I'd love to tell you. Behind me, mostly in the back rows, are a group of people that I believe have had some positive influence as a result of Pat White. Will you stand up if you've had positive influence from Captain Pat White? Now, I don't have to turn around because I know that every agency member and others are standing up. In true leadership fashion, Pat has passed on his experience to this group of people, detectives, deputies, our civilian staff, our SWAT team members, so that we can still sleep at night under the protection of Pat through his legacy. Pat, congratulations on your well-deserved retirement, and may God bless you.
What? Everybody come on up.
Why don't we bring the whole gang down? Come on, you showed up. Let's support Pat on his retirement. No.
Yeah, that's fine.
Throw your
Yeah,
short
come on
guys,
up.
get in.
Kathy, you want to go back there?
Some of you can come back here. Just come back here in the
Yeah,
back.
y'all can just funnel up.
Get behind the tallest, too.
Go ahead in the back.
Go in the back row.
Few aisles back.
Just have them come in the back.
proclamation? Yeah? No.
Super.
Pat, congratulations again, and thanks everybody from the sheriff's office for being here. We appreciate that. I know Pat does. All right, next we're going to move on to, let me find my actual sheet. This will be 7A, Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. This shouldn't be surprising to anyone. This is a award that's pretty much won by our clerk of the court, Mr. Jeff Smith, and his staff. You go over there in their office and look on the wall, there's like 100 plaques on the wall. I don't think anybody's ever won this award but them. Because there can't be that many plaques, and we've won it like every year, I think. But it's an awesome award, and we're much appreciated. And I know that Chief Deputy Mr. Butler's here. He'd probably like to say a few words about that and his staff for winning that like a consecutive award.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. This really is a great honor for the clerk and comptroller's office. We've had this award now for 39 consecutive years. The first year was 1983 under Clerk Frieda Wright, and that honor was continued with Clerk Jeffrey Barton, and for the past 10 years with our Clerk Jeff Smith. Florida law actually requires local governments to produce an annual financial report, but the statute just sets forth minimum standards. In order to qualify for this particular award, we have to comply with 48 pages of requirements and implement a total of 93 different governmental accounting standards. That's why they call it a comprehensive report, because of all those accounting standards. It now stands at over 400 pages. And every year, the number of governmental accounting standards that are implemented keeps getting longer, and so we expect that report's going to have to get longer every year to continue to comply with the requirements for this award. So really, to call it a comprehensive report is an understatement. But of course, the real credit here goes to the people who actually produce this report. And we have our Chief Deputy of Finance, Alyssa Nagy, and our Supervisor, Ray Ann Cohn, and all the incredible outstanding staff in the Comptroller's office. They're the ones who put this report together. And it's a process that takes about 6 months to do. They start in October, and they don't finish until about March. So half of their year is spent, in addition to all the other things they have to do at the Comptroller's office, it's spent putting this report together. And right now they're working diligently on the 2022 report. So if you want a sneak preview of that, you're welcome to come upstairs. We'll crack open the spreadsheets for you. But of course, the data that we actually have in this report, I think I would be remiss if I didn't point out that data is collected from all the county departments. So all the county staff members contribute on a daily basis the financial data that goes into making this report. And of course, we receive that data from the departments and from the county budget office with Kristen Daniels and her staff. And so in that sense, it's really a collaborative effort that goes into this report. And I think all of the county staff as well deserve some of the credit for receiving this award. We do have extra copies of this book if anybody would like to have it. It's also on our website along with previous years, but I certainly thank you for recognizing this achievement of the office.
Thank you. Job well done.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, why not?
All right, moving on to number 6. We have the minutes, the regular minutes of the meeting of November 5th, 2022, and the regular meeting of November 18th, 2002. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, move approval, both.
Second.
Who had the second? We have a motion by Commissioner Fleischer, second by Commissioner Adams to approve the minutes as written. Anybody from the audience wish to comment on the motion? Seeing none, Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 5-0. Moving on to number 7. We've already done 7A. 7D is my appointment of Katie Mears to the Children's Services Advisory Committee. representing District 3. Katie is a longtime Vero Beach resident. Her grandfather, back in, I believe, in the early 80s, was mayor of the city of Vero Beach. So she has a lot vested in this county, and I think she'll be a great appointment for Children's Services. Next, we are
Mr. Chair?
going to move on to the
Sure.
Sorry?
May I speak for a moment about 7B? Would that be all right?
I'm sorry?
7B? May
Did move?
I speak for a moment
You wanna
about that?
talk on 7B? Okay,
Just
7B.
Just as a point of information, thank you. This has to do with the SHIP program, that State Housing Initiative Partnership, that's state funding, and also SHARP, which has to do with the American Rescue Plan, that's federal money. So the two are combined in working with people who they have homes. This is kind of the other side of homelessness. They have homes, but they're having trouble keeping in their homes with regard to keeping up with emergency repairs or rehabilitation. So the funds are used for that. And I bring this to the community just so that you know that we are working on it, and I take it as an opportunity to commend the staff. That's Phil Mattson, John Stoll, and Bill Collins, because it's a great balance of due diligence in examining finances. There's a lot of paperwork involved, and compassion, because we want to keep people in their homes. That in a way also, prevents homelessness from happening. So attached to the agenda are 4 that we just approved last week, came to a total of $80,000. And just so you have an idea, 2 of them were very low income household assets, 2 are moderate income. But interestingly, all 3 there are people who are employed. So we often talk about lack of workforce housing. Well, the workforce also needs help sometimes to maintain their homes and to stay in their homes in emergency situations. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Welcome, thank you. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. As you noticed, 8G is not there. It was deleted and taken care of by staff. So commissioners, any changes or additions, deletions, or pull an item on the consent agenda?
Move approval, Chairman.
Seeing none, anybody from the audience, anything on the consent agenda they wish to bring up for discussion? Seeing none. I have a motion by Commissioner Lohr,
Second.
second by Commissioner Fleischer. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Next, we are going to move to 15, item 15, 15B, I believe. The Solid Waste Disposal District. So let's move on with 15B1, approval of Solid Waste Disposal District meeting minutes of November 15th, and 15B2, approval of Solid Waste Disposal District meeting minutes of November 22nd, 2022.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Fleischer. Thank you, I heard that. Anybody from the audience wish to comment on the motion? Seeing none, Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 5-0. Moving on to 15B3, Amendment Number 1 to agreement between the Solid Waste Disposal District and KCI for franchise collection procurement assistance. My main man from the landfill, Mr. Mehta, what you got for us today?
Good morning, Commissioners. Himanshu Mehta, Solid Waste Disposal District Chairman. Commissioners, thank you for moving our items to the front of the meeting today. With me today, I have Chaz Jordan. He's with Kester Consulting, and he came over across from Tampa, so I appreciate the opportunity to let him present to all of us. What we're going to talk about this morning is the Solid Waste Disposal District is a dependent district, as you know, of the county, and we have 2 funding mechanisms. One is basically our tipping fees at the landfill, and the other part is our non-ad valorem assessment that we have on all improved residential and commercial properties. That system of assessment was based on some analysis that was done in 1995, and that basis of analysis has not changed since that time. And so a couple years ago, we authorized Kester Consulting to help us analyze this waste generation study. And over, the 28 years, as you can imagine, the way we consume things, the way we dispose things, the way we recycle things, how products are produced, all of those things have changed over time. So it was very important to kind of get a true up on how the materials are handled by residents, businesses, and how they ultimately get into our landfill or out of the landfill in terms of our recycling program. I think most of us can tell when I use an example of a plastic bottle that was, say, 5-6 years ago, weighed a lot heavier than it may weigh now. So it was very important to kind of true up this waste generation analysis. And so we started the process in 2020 with the hope of kind of getting it done by 2022. As you know, around that time, we had a little thing called COVID, and so our consultant kind of, we did some initial analysis, but then we kind of paused for a little while, because as you can imagine back in the time, a lot of people weren't out at restaurants eating, right? So we didn't want to skew the data that we were trying to collect is what is generated at home, what is generated at a particular business or an office. And so it's taken us a little longer to kind of get to this point. Our consultant here is today to present to you, to us, the waste generation analysis. And we've kind of the methodology that went into it. One of the things that former County Administrator Jason Brown had really, and Kristen Daniels, it was very important for us to make sure that we give you quantifiable data. And one of the neat things about sort of waiting this long is that we were able to use modern technology. We actually had scales that were installed on waste management trucks. So when they went to a particular business, we were able to actually quantify the waste generated at a particular restaurant or a particular office. And that's a huge tool that we've been able to employ currently that we didn't use in 1995. So without further delay, I'd like to invite Chaz Jordan to go over the waste generation study. One of the items here is an amendment, so what we want to talk about is in terms of the recommendation, there is an amendment to the agreement to continue the next step, which is the rate analysis.
Thank you, Mr. Mehta, and good morning, Commissioners. Thank you very much for moving this ahead to the beginning of your agenda. I definitely appreciate it. In front of you is our presentation. Mr. Mehta's already kind of gone through a few of these things, so if I breeze through a few slides, it's because you've already heard about it, but I'll try to give you an update of where we're at in terms of this generation study and what the results are and how that's going to impact some things on the financial level and why we'd like to continue this rate study to get you to a good place in the future. Very quickly, we're going to just go through some background just to re-educate everybody, especially folks at home and in the audience, a history of what's happened with these waste generation units, why we've analyzed it, our methodology for looking at how to better review these items and get them up to date, and then what the findings are so you can see where we're at in that part of the process. So as Mr. Mehta already said, the Enterprise Fund is funded through a number of different items, but a primary revenue source is property assessments. And the disposal district assesses properties based upon an estimated waste generation unit per year. So we basically say that in terms of residential units, we estimate that they are going to dispose of 1.6 tons of waste either through solid waste or recycling in a year, and we utilize that to determine an assessment value for that property. As Mr. Mehta said, the last time these were updated and reviewed was in 1995 and have not been updated since. This is a basic way to calculate these assessments so that you have this in front of you. For a residential unit, you would take a solid waste fee, a recycling fee, add them together and multiply it by that 1.6 or waste generation unit. That would determine the assessment value for a residential property. For commercial, it's a little bit more complicated. They don't have a recycling fee, but they do assess based upon the size of the property and then based upon the property use itself. So a restaurant has a different property use than, say, an office or a convenience store. And utilizing that, we would multiply that based upon that fee and then times the square footage on the property to determine their assessment value. So in 2021, we were engaged, KCI was, to implement a methodology to basically verify these waste generation units with new and accurate data. One of the things that was very much put into our scope was that the original study that was done in 1995 utilized mainly tabletop methodologies for determining these waste generation units. Mainly they did analyses from data crunching. It was requested of us to get real-world, on-the-ground data from, actual properties throughout the process. Something that we could verify and something that's defensible for how we determine that generation unit. Pardon me. Excuse me. No, I'm good, thank you. So to meet those expectations, we implemented a number of different methodologies. First, for residential, was to take scale house data, that's the data from when a truck enters the landfill and when it exits, to determine how much material was actually placed at the landfill from residential routes. We used that data over a 6-month period, actually it was an 8-month period when we finished, based upon the total units that were serviced. So we were able to very accurately determine what an average annual waste generation amount was based upon those weights, all of the routes that Waste Management provided for that service over that time period. Commercial, as Mr. Mehta said, was a little bit more of a challenge, and we implemented a new technology that has only been on the market for the last 5 to 10 years, which is onboard scale systems, which actually weigh a dumpster as it's being dumped into the vehicle. This onboard scale system was then utilized on 2 trucks that performed routes of commercial properties that were specifically high property amounts in the county that needed to be reviewed so that we had ample data points to determine accurate generation numbers. So we looked at specifically, there was 10 or 11 specific property codes that the vast majority of businesses in Indian River County fell within. So we wanted to get as much data on those codes as possible and some data on all the other codes if possible. And then finally, roll-off. Roll-off was one that we had attempted to move forward with based upon scale house data. However, just the data sampling did not come together well based upon some of the things that were included in those data sets. So we decided to move forward with current generation units for that service. So we gathered data from these data sources for at least 6 months. It actually ended up being 8. And the reason for that was we had vehicles that had some downtime, some maintenance issues that these scales were on, and quite honestly, they're not plug and play. So it was very difficult for us to go and gather data from another route or to interchange that information during that time. So we had to wait for some maintenance to be done on the trucks. But we also wanted to make sure we covered seasonality. So anybody who's lived in Florida, commissioners, you understand there's different times of year where generation of materials is just changing based upon spring break or holidays or the summertime. So we wanted to try to gather as much data over a wide range of time period as possible to really show how those changes may occur. So we began collecting data in October of 2021, hoping to end in April 2022, but again, based upon the equipment issues, we actually extended that on to July 2022 to gain more data to hopefully complete and bring in all of that data that we needed to do our review. All in all, KCI gathered almost 50,000 single points of data over that core time period. We utilized that data based upon multiple different points of entry. We had onboard scales, we had the scale house data, we had routing schedules from Waste Management. All of these went into an Excel model, which then we QC'd, reviewed, and analyzed to determine what should be these appropriate generation units per property. So our findings were this. One, and first was that we took this information and developed a model that had weighted averages and confidence intervals. And basically what that means is we have a targeted average, but in any kind of statistically valid review, there's always a confidence interval of one way or the other that things could move. So we wanted to make sure that we had that data in there for you all to review and consider. And we also wanted to make sure that the largest number of properties that you have were included in that study, and we feel we've achieved that. Overall, most properties, especially residential, have a lower annual generation of solid waste than what was determined in 1995. What that means is less material is being processed at the landfill by the solid waste disposal district than what was being based upon what is being generated by county properties than what is being assessed for. It is actually being borne more on other landfill activities, such as tipping fees or private haulers and so on and so forth. There were some particular commercial entities, however, that did show an increase in generation, and we'll go over that in a minute, and those generation rates did go up based upon a change in how they were disposing of material in 1995 to today. So this is the waste generation unit for residential. As you can see, we are proposing that it go down from 1.6 tons per year to 1.4. This was again based upon very many different data points from a number of routes, residential routes, and the amount of properties that were included on those routes. Commercial waste generation units, these are the properties that had the most, or these are the use codes that had the most properties within the county. You can see what the current waste generation units are versus the proposed waste generation units. And I've highlighted those that are changing or being proposed for change. And as you can see, many of them went down, some of them went up, some of them went up quite a bit based upon the data that we received over that time. This spreadsheet takes a look at what is the impact of those waste generation unit rates based upon, say, a 1,000 square foot building. And this is to give you an idea of what a certain commercial complex or a resident may see in a change in their bill. This is based upon fiscal year 22 assessment rates and based upon a 1,000 square foot building. As you can see, many of them go down if the rates were to stay the same. Some of them go up based upon the new generation rate that's being applied to this proposed study. Now, we wanted to make sure we had a review of the total data that we put into this to do a gut check, make sure that we were on the right track. So this is a basic table of the amount of tons that were actually processed through the assessments at the landfill in 2022 and 2021 based upon how many WGUs were charged in that year based upon current rates and what they would have been based upon these proposed rates. And as you can see, the current rates were about 7% more than the total tons actually processed at the landfill, versus the new proposed rates are a lot closer at 2%, which again is within that confidence interval that we've talked about a little bit ago. So we feel very confident that these new generation rates are much more accurate and in line with current county trends. So going forward with next steps and talking about the amendment that's in front of you, we have also reviewed what does this mean in terms of revenue for the district. What this graph shows you is that implementing those new waste generation units based upon the fact that most of them are a little bit lower does mean that assessments, if using similar rates, would bring in less revenue to the tune of about 6% per year. And that is because you're then assessing based upon actual tons coming in based upon those properties versus a number that's been based on 20 years ago. So this presents a need for additional analysis, because then we still need to cover the costs of the disposal district and the landfill. So how do we do that if we are implementing these new generation rates? And that goes into the next steps, and what we are hoping to present to you in a couple of months on the findings is, one, what would happen if we implemented these generation rate changes over time? Say you didn't want to just implement them all immediately, or you wanted to look at some sort of stepped approach so that some businesses, like those that would have a significant increase, would have a gradual increase over time. What would that do in terms of those revenue changes? Second, looking at tipping fee charges and other direct costs or direct revenue sources at the landfill and seeing how we can offset revenue changes based upon a more comprehensive look at how those are assessed and what those charges need to be. And then finally, looking at all the infrastructure improvements that may be necessary at the landfill for the next 10 years. And what that does is looks at large capital investments that need to be made based upon the size and scope of the landfill, and when those need to be made, and how your rates need to cover those costs over time so that you do not take on additional debt, or that you do not need to look at other means of providing this service. We'd like to proceed with this study, give you some options for how this can happen if you want to proceed with these generation units, which we recommend you do, and then come back to you with more information on what those different scenarios look like. With that, I'll invite Mr. Mehta back up and be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, any questions?
I just have a concern, and I'm sure Himanshu probably knows what it is already, but of all the categories that you are increasing, restaurants are doubling. So I say that, obviously it sounds somewhat selfish, but considering that's my other hat, we have a restaurant, but I'm concerned for a lot of the smaller restaurants with all the extra increases. I would very much hope that we would look at a stepped way to phase that in. I understand the methodology, how those numbers came to be, but a lot of your restaurants are larger than 1,000 square feet. So if you're talking about doubling that assessment overnight, it could be a huge obstacle, especially to some of your mom and pop restaurants.
Commissioner, point well taken, and one of the things that we've done on a preliminary basis is kind of, the approach, our guidance to our consultant is to look at various scenarios. And so, if you just made the waste generation changes as Chaz, showed, you have a decline in revenue. So, you have to maybe combine that with tipping rate increases. And same thing, our tipping rates at the landfill are the same that they were in 1995. They have not changed at all. So even though our assessment rates have increased, if you will, not the WGUs, but the rates have increased annually to cover our expenses, our tipping rates have not changed. So that's the other mode of revenue that we're looking at to see. So we are going to work with our consultant to look at various scenarios. As Chaz mentioned, we are going to be looking at that scenario where there's a gradual increase on the WGUs. One of the things that we as staff, I think a couple years ago when I mentioned 2020, that's when we did the analysis of tipping rates between us and our surrounding counties. And we're significantly lower than our surrounding counties. So in terms of the tipping rates, staff feels pretty strongly that we need to catch up with the times in terms of our tipping rates. And that will help maybe allow us to do a gradual increase on some of the WGU changes that we're looking at. So certainly, we're keeping that in mind.
Thank you. And I know this is just one part of what will ultimately be that overall package, so I can appreciate that. And I do think it's a good thing that you guys have done this assessment, and those residential WGUs look like they should be coming down, which would provide some relief to our residents, which is great. But I'll wait to see what the total package looks like at the end of the day. I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Appreciate it. One thing I also want to mention, that this next step, if you will, and it's getting from 1995 to 2023 is this major step. This does not look at any future impacts that we may have for our collection services. So I just want to mention that to the commission to to be aware that once we go through our collection contract and whatever those decisions are made, right now, the assessment does not include any collection services. So if the board in the future time decides to add collection services to our assessment, we would have to revisit our rates and whatnot and make that change sometime in 2024, 2025 timeframe. So just want to put that out there as well.
Is it typical to wait this long? I mean, because I know that was set in 95, and I know it seems like a long period of time to go without, and you kind of review it along the way, but not as significant as this. Is that standard, or is this something that we should think about doing more often, just out of curiosity?
Commissioner, that's a wonderful question, and I'll be very frank in that it is not standard. There's not really a standard process for this. Indian River County is very unique in the state with this methodology, and I mean that by actually putting forth this level of effort and determining what that generation unit really should be. Most places, similar to the 1995 study, would look at more of a tabletop type of generational review based upon like a regional level or possibly a southeastern level, and then some specific metrics dealing with the county. This is one of the few that I have seen in my consulting career, which was actually boots on the ground, gathering data directly from your customers. And it's kind of a new methodology to do it that way, and I feel it's been very successful in that manner.
Yeah, I think you get much more accurate information rather than some of the guesstimates, so I think it was a good exercise. I was just curious how often we should be replicating it.
I think going forward, it's something that maybe we look at every 5 to 10 years. And in terms of this, I know the Utilities Department has done this, is in terms of rates, we may look at including some sort of like a CPI adjustment annually, so that we don't have 28, plus years or 28 years of no changes in our rates at the landfill.
Awesome, thank you.
Commissioners, any further questions? I too agree with Commissioner Adams, and I like the way we're looking at this. This is something that we probably should have done sooner, but we've been in pretty good shape. But people are moving here. The demands on the landfill, the demands on the collection are increasing every day. So we know that we have to be ready for it. And I appreciate your effort in getting us ready for it and getting this information we need. And it is impressive information too. I do like the way it was, hands-on, boots on the ground kind of thing to get this information. I think that's something that I wouldn't have thought of, obviously, but I'm not as a commissioner, I don't know that I know what I know about garbage is what Himanshu tells me and what I see. So, but I think it's pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive, and I applaud y'all for the effort. And commissioners, with that, any further discussion or questions of staff? Seeing none, I'll entertain whatever you would like to do.
I'll be happy to move staff recommendation.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Moss. Anybody from the public wish to comment on the motion? Seeing none. Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Hearing none, passes 5-0. All right, we'll move on to 15B4. This is the 19th Amendment to Republic Services. Any comments on that?
Commissioners, this is an annual adjustment to our Republic Services contract for our landfill gas operation and maintenance services that they have. They utilize a subcontractor, SCS, to provide those services. So annually, we come to the board to request an adjustment based on that.
I'd be happy to move staff recommendation.
Second it.
I have a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Moss to move staff recommendation. Anybody from the public wish to comment on this motion? Seeing none, Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for coming. Appreciate the information. All right, moving on to public items, public hearing. We have a public hearing, 10A1, miscellaneous budget amendment 02. There she is, our budget director, Kristen Daniels.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kristen Daniels, Budget Director. Before you today is Budget Amendment 2. This budget amendment funds the CIE that the board approved back in December, as well as some miscellaneous projects and purchase orders that need to be rolled over into the current fiscal year. Excuse me. Per Florida Statute 129.062F, whenever the budget is amended utilizing cash, a public hearing must be held. So today, staff recommends that after the public hearing is closed, that the board approve the resolution amending the fiscal year 22-23 budget. And I'm available if you have any questions.
Commissioners, any questions of Ms. Daniels?
Move approval.
Open the public hearing. With that, I'll open the public hearing. Anybody from the public wish to comment? Don't everybody run up to the podium. Anybody wish to comment? Seeing none, with that, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, I have a motion by Commissioner Lohr, second by Commissioner Fleischer. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to public discussion items. 10B1. This is a request to speak from Susan Beal, the Alliance for Safe Trains Reason Brightline update. Ms. Beal, welcome.
Good morning, and thank you. I thought we would just review some of the things about the trains because I know a lot of people have kind of lost track of where we are on those. And so just as a little refresher, how do I do it? This thing, okay. Just a reminder that there typically are 34 trains a day, and through our county and the 4 counties, including Martin, St. Lucie, Brevard, Martin, St. Lucie, Indian River County, and Brevard, they will be going 110 miles an hour. So far, at least 76 people have passed away in a train-related accident, and recently, just in the last few days, there was one more. 43 people lost their lives in the first 2 years of operation. Then there was the COVID ending, and 33 more have perished. All the deaths happened with trains that were going 75 miles an hour at the highest speed. And there are currently no trains today in this entire country that are going to operate like Brightline will, which is up to 110 miles an hour, crossing approximately, I think it was 125 crossings at street level, and with no pedestrian bridging, and through basically populated areas. Oops. And this was noted in a number of studies, but particularly the OPAGA study of 2018, while the FRA and the Florida Department have in place regulations for conventional, that's up to 80 miles, and high speed, 126 to 120 or 220. Neither agency has developed additional regulations for this specific type of system. However, at this point, I think there probably are some. And one of the things I'm going to ask you today is maybe to help us find out exactly what is going on in this regulation realm. And there's a need, I believe, for some type of communication streamline between FDOT and the local residents of these counties, including ours. Just historically, we knew at the beginning that All Aboard Florida, its original name, equated to all about freight. Sound effects later. And that's what we believed was in the corporation's mind when they decided to do this. Some examples of why we believed that was the Fortress Investment Group that owned it, or at least, yes, because now it's owned by a Mexican conglomerate, the tracks are. But they had set up a structure to produce and export liquefied natural gas, and they needed rail capability. This was back from 2015 when their LNG manufacturers were approved by the federal government and the Federal Energy Office to export LNG from a number of major ports in our state. This is the major ports in the state that they got approval for, and this just happens to be their route plans. One of the things, a number of things that we have found that need addressing, we believe, are the open stretches of track, just period paragraph. All high-speed rail is fenced completely. This will have major stretches of open track. We think we should be finding out more about the fencing plans, and we believe they're marginal at best. Again, 125 crossings in 4 counties. I had a meeting recently with Mr. Reingold, Mr. Zito, but also, and Tom, Spierka, and the Public Works Director, and I was pleased to find out that in the negotiations to settle the lawsuit that we all had, or the county had, with Brightline at the state level, that we did receive assurance that a number of the types of track upgrades that we believe are critically important are supposed to be done for the county's crossings. But at this point, I understand those are for the county crossings in unincorporated areas. So my question is, and I guess somebody's job, and I will probably be doing this, is to try to find out more about the counties in the or the crossings in the municipalities, including Sebastian and Vero Beach, because those have some critically important crossings that we have to find out about. Some of the things that we see we need, and I'll get into a little bit later, are vehicle detection systems and traffic preemption. We need clear regulations for trains going over 80 miles an hour. And one critical thing that's going to be a problem, I believe, long term, is that our organization does not support quiet zones, unfortunately. Ironically enough, Florida East Coast Rail was one of the primary systems that was looked at because they instituted quiet zones about 30 years ago, and the accident rates climbed exponentially, particularly at night. And so the Fed said we need better and increased regulation over quiet zones. We believe that trains going 110 miles an hour with no warning systems are going to be a terrible, terrible danger for us. One of the reasons we're so interested in fencing the tracks are that there are a number of youth-related activity centers near open tracking right now. And we list 5 of them here, including Gifford Middle School. And those Gifford stops at 41st Street and 45th Street are important stops that we want to make sure get all the necessary crossing upgrades and safety equipment. More fencing and pedestrian bridges, as I said, channeling of pedestrians and gates so the pedestrians just can't willy-nilly walk across the tracks. Vehicle detection systems so that the system is alerted when there is a vehicle stalled on the tracks or an accident on the tracks. Traffic preemption systems would be critically important for us, as it was spelled out in the county's response to the environmental impact statement that the company prepared, because we have we have some intersections near our tracks, very near our tracks, that could potentially back up with a lot of traffic. And when those gates come down, we've seen this happen in South Florida, there can be dramatic impact. Remote health monitoring is important, and that has to do with monitoring all these systems to make sure all the data is coming in accurately into their hub. So one of the things we're not really clear on at this point is what is FDOT requiring of the corporation. And since my meeting, I have changed this slide mentally, but we do need help in communicating with both the Florida Department of Transportation and the Florida Transportation Commission, which is supposed to represent the people of the state as they interface with the DOT. So that's what we're just suggesting, and we need everybody to get attuned to what's going to be happening soon, and we'll keep updating you, and I will hope that you will keep updating us so that we can understand better what the plans are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? Nope.
Anybody?
Yeah, thank you for the update.
Thank you. 10B2, request to speak from George Cologne, advocate for fentanyl awareness. Mr. Cologne, welcome.
Thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank God for Governor DeSantis, just came out the last 2 days, recognizing the danger of fentanyl and also the drug addiction happening in our country, and especially Florida. So the consequence is going to rise. Thank God we have someone that has the clarity for sacredness in life. Fentanyl is not prejudice. Not only people who are addicted get affected by fentanyl, those who have other issues, medical issues. And it hasn't seemed to be as important in this country as some of my federal agents have seemed to understand, especially here in Florida. I don't know why. I really don't know why. But the FBI, DEA is on top of this, and everybody else in this country is asleep on it. Maybe it hasn't affected them yet, or their children. But I guarantee you, you go to Washington, D.C., they will alert you. Why do I say that? 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when I went to Washington, D.C. to protest about this thing that's killing people in front of the China embassy, thank God we had some agents there from the DEA and FBI recognizing the seriousness of this. Some other people don't want to classify it. It's like goes over their head. Good luck with your life if you're on some medical, if you're on some medication. Why? The cartel has become experts now in infiltrating the medical field. So it might not be important to some people, but I guarantee you it will be. It's not going to affect me, thank God, because of the support of Washington, D.C., now with David Mayfield, Posey, and now DeSantis. So thank God those people are hearing what this thing has done. All right? It's not just an outside issue. And I really don't want to spend too much time on that, but that's part of what leads me to the next subject matter. Thank God for Laura Moss and Sheriff Flowers, who see the vitalness and the importance of this issue, which is the sober home issues, which leads to some of this. Because I've been in the field of addiction, and since 2013, I'm not get sober, get clean, and then I'm a professional in the field. The teams that I work for are private, and they require education. Unlike today, people get sober, they open up a sober house. Disaster. Do your due diligence and check out what happened in Delray. Well, it's happening in Vero Beach today. There are only 2 that are FAR accredited, meaning that they meet the criteria of the Florida guidelines. Other than that, you got flop houses. What do I mean by that? They kick people out if they slip, and they throw them back on the streets, and you know who's paying for taking care of them? Indian River County constituents, your constituents, they're paying for people who don't know how to manage a sober house, are not trained and unqualified. And it's about the money, most of them. I'm not afraid to call it as I see it. Believe me, I have no fear. All right? So you have 2 that are FAR accredited and you have 10 under the radar. What's going to happen? Talk to Sheriff Flowers. He knows what's happening with this. All right? The drug epidemic, fentanyl's in Vero Beach. In some of these sober houses, people go back out and use. Sadly, I say that. And do you know what some of them use? Fentanyl. An innocent person in this county can be affected by that. I love Santos. Murder one. Anybody dealing fentanyl? Let's stop the nonsense. There's actually somebody who has some integrity, finally, in this country. Our country is in disarray. This administration has created nothing but a mess. And I'm not a politician, but it's very clear. Why? Because of what's happening in our great country. And it's affected here in Vero. And people don't want to think about it till it happens to someone in your family. And when it does, I guarantee you, when you look at these statistics, you have DEA statistics, you have health department statistics, you have going on, and anything. You know, America's intentionally being poisoned. And some people are like, it's not a big deal. I was tethered 6 months ago, and I'm not going to tell you of the name of the law enforcement guy here because I observe people and our federal agents are watching what's happening here in Indian River County. He had the audacity to say that there might be a problem in Indian River County 6 months ago. He should be flipping burgers at McDonald's. This guy should not be in law enforcement. I won't give you the name, but I can tell you the federal government has it. Beyond my human comprehension. Law enforcement. Now, I know more about fentanyl because, thank God, I deal with agents. And my family is former FBI and DEA, and the education I get is through them and others, where in our municipalities, thank God, Laura Moss and Sheriff Flowers are my eardrums. Everybody else doesn't seem to be concerned about it. Wait. Just wait on this. Because I tell you, if it hasn't affected yet. So, regarding the sober homes, Sheriff Flowers addressed this back in September. I got the data. I keep records. My federal agents also have documents and everything that I keep. I talked to someone at the code enforcement, 822-0202. We don't have enough staff to take care of this stuff. I got the names. I'll give you names of people that are in government. We need less government. We don't have enough people to take care of this to go and monitor. All right? The agenda by Sheriff Flowers back in September 9th, 22. Has anything been done about this issue? It's 5 months. It's only 5 months. I get it. I get other things happen. A couple people die in between. I think the lady was talking about some people dying about the freight train. Let's talk about how many people OD in Indian River County, or families that are affected by drugs and alcohol in Indian River County. But that's what the sheriff has to be done. All right? Now, we could go on. There's actually a few people that listen in Indian River County other than Laura Moss and Sheriff Flowers and my federal agent friends. I talked to a gentleman by the name of John from the Community Development Department. Oh my God, there are some guidelines regarding residential treatment homes. I've gone to people, they're like, there's nothing, watch for the ADA, they use so many excuses. There are guidelines. Not only do you have these guidelines that are in your own municipality here, you could go with FAR, which is the Florida Association for Recovery Residences. And the executive director came here and spoke and asked. That's gone wayside. I could go on and on. Now, like I said, the only one that seems to think that's important is flowers, my federal agents, and a few people. Most people are ignorant. I don't say that in a condescending way. It's not important to them. It's not. Code enforcement's not important. Health department. I went there the other day. They're sitting on their ass, excuse me for saying that, and I said, I got a question to ask you. How many people required for the health department can you have at home? We don't have time to answer that. I'm like, great government, right? We're so concerned about constituents. Less government's better. So my plea to you is, if you don't know how to do the language, we can get somebody, because we have people in Tallahassee, now with the support of DeSantos, Posey, and Mayfield, we could get something done. And that's my plea to you. I'm not a politician. I feel every life is sacred. If you haven't met parents their children have been murdered by fentanyl, might be a good idea to do that. There's going to be many, many gatherings next year with people from the fentanyl awareness. I could go on and on nationally. And maybe that'll enlighten some people in this county. If not, till it happens to them, then they might really pay attention. So I appreciate you hearing. If you need data, we could get you federal data. I can connect you with DeSantos, Washington, D.C., Laura Moss knows, whatever you need. But I can't do it for you. I'm not. It's not my role. I'm just an advocate in trying to help every life have a chance to live without this thing that's killing people. So there might be a few people, forgive me, Commissioner Ehrman, there might be a few people that want to talk about the seriousness of this and the importance of having some registration, not regulation, because that's showing them how to operate in Indian River County. How that benefits Indian River County, it helps law enforcement to know where these sober houses are, one. And it helps law enforcement to know that they're not drug houses, second. Two. Third, if there's an actual medical emergency, then the medical staff or those resources would know exactly where to go. Four, if they're not operating with some standard, not like, a flop house with 20 guys with one bathroom. I've seen it. That's unethical, but they get money every week. I'm in the wrong business. I want $6,000 a week for that. I'm in the wrong business, right? So thank you for hearing me. If others choose to share, I'm very passionate about human life. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Mr. Colon. Yeah, thank you. We, we as under this area of request to speak, we don't normally take action. I would tell you that this is an important issue. We realize that you've got former sheriff's deputy, former highway patrol captain, and former sheriff in Indian River County, former captain with Indian River County Fire Rescue. We have seen the worst of the worst. We have seen this time and time again. If it wasn't fentanyl, it was something else. Since you mentioned Commissioner Moss's name, if there's something that y'all would like to bring forward with this someday, I would suggest that you continue to work with Commissioner Moss. You seem to have a relationship, but all of us are open. I'm sure our vice chairman is also open to any discussion, so we appreciate it, and thank you very much. So, next, 10B3, request from Joanne McGrath, the safety and protection of gopher tortoises in Indian River County, and after we're done with that, we'll take a short break. So, Ms. McGrath.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your time. Thank you for showing up. And thank you for all the work that has been done regarding the safety and protection of gopher tortoises in our county. So all the work that Steve Hitt has been doing, and Beth Powell, and all the gopher tortoise rescuers. We all appreciate that work, and we acknowledge that you guys have made action with that. So I'm here basically because my heart is heavy. I've lived in the same house in Roseland, Warregan Township, for 32 years, surrounded by gopher tortoises and other wildlife. And my property, there's gopher tortoise north, south, east, and west of me. I may not know exactly where their burrow is because sometimes they're hidden. Sorry. Sometimes we can see it, and sometimes we can't see those burrows. And my heart was hardened because people are coming to our state. We can't stop it. And land was purchased. So let's show the first slideshow. So this is a picture of my view. When I opened my front door to go outside, I saw trees, and that was for 32 years. And then they cleared it. I cannot say to you in all honesty that there would gopher tortoises on that land. But I can tell you that my neighbor has seen gopher tortoises going in and out of that property. I don't have the proof. So the bottom line is, how many gopher tortoises live there? We don't know. What's the second one? So why are they so important? Number one, they're 60 million years old. 60 million years old. They're ancient reptiles. And their burrows, as you can see, can go to 15 to 25 feet long and goes 6 feet deep. But the problem when we do our development, the state law says that when their burrow is extended 25 feet, we have to not go near that burrow, and I believe it's 15 feet. I'm not totally sure. So we have to be careful on the building on that, around them. And why are they so important? Because it's a nature's ecosystem. There's approximately 350 to 360 other wildlife that depend on the gopher tortoise's burrows. They actually live inside the burrows during hurricanes, during safety, during their own predators, gopher frogs, burrow owls, et cetera, et cetera. So I just want to say that there is a Florida state law, Rule 68A-27.003, FAC, Florida Administrative Code, that all gopher tortoises in our state need to be protected. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I am going to read a portion of it. No person shall take, attempt to take, pursue, hunt, harass, capture, possess, sell, or transport any gopher tortoise or parts thereof, or their eggs, molest, damage, or destroy gopher tortoise burrows, except as authorized by commission permit or with FWC. Next one. So what is really the problem? Our gopher tortoises' mortality rates may be rising due to land development when environmental surveys and our land clearing permits are not enforced, as well as environmental surveys. So we have to see if you can consider to honor state law, because when we are clearing land, not knowing who's living there, in a sense, we are not protecting the gopher tortoise. So it is a violation of Florida state law when gopher tortoises are killed without the protections of an environmental survey and or land clearing permit, no matter what the size is of the land parcel. We cannot do a guessing game. We cannot just look on a very dense area of undeveloped land and say, no, there's no gopher tortoises there. We need our staff to go in there, to assess the area, document. Next one, please. So how can we fix this? I had a conversation with Fish and Wildlife Law Officer, Officer Platt, and with permission, he gave me to quote this, his quote, "What can Indian River County do to support our Florida state law?" He said to issue and enforce all landowner and developers to do an environmental survey before the land is cleared and developed, and to issue land clearing permits before any size land parcel is cleared or developed. I won't go into the next one. Next one. So as I did this, there was some changes that I decided to make. And I know that you all have limited time. But our request to all of you in our county, our residents, especially in the Warrigan Township area where I live, where there's mostly dense populated gopher tortoises. And they are being buried alive on parcels of land less than 1 acre. And we have a local ordinance. Can you bring up that local ordinance? On the end, I think it's at the end of the slideshow. Next one, next. There it is. So our local ordinance for our Indian River County, as you know, very well know, requires land clearing permit and complete environmental assessment report, including gopher tortoise survey and habitat suitability on all development sites over 1 acre. That's where we feel is the weak link. What about gopher tortoises that are living on less than 1 acre? People who are moving to our county are possibly, most likely are purchasing property that is less than 1 acre, 1/4 of an acre, 1/2 an acre, 3/4 of an acre. So those gopher tortoises that are living on those sites will be killed without some sort of an insurance of an environmental survey or a land clearing permit. So we ask you to reconsider the possibility of changing that ordinance to cover all size land parcels in our county. Let's do it right. Let's honor state law. Let's protect this 60-million-year-old reptile because it's supporting our whole ecosystem, and that's why we're all here. We're here for the beauty. A lot of us are transplants here, New York City, Massachusetts, Maine, wherever we come from. But we come, why do we hibernate here? Because we love nature. And some of you have had 4th-generation families that have lived in Florida and are respected and loved growing up in these areas. So we ask you to consider the change on that ordinance. And also, some of you, I know all of you are aware of this, but I like to just point out that the city of Sebastian is following this state law. Resolution R08-14, they require land clearing permit for any size site where the ground is scraped for development of any type. And they require city staff inspect all land clearing or grubbing permit sites for gopher tortoise burrows on sites less than 1 acre. Can we have maybe consistency in our county? I know they do their own thing sometimes, but the county rules our municipalities. They have to follow your lead. They can't make their own creation on this. So that is the #1 request that our citizens are asking you all to consider to change. And the other thing that we are suggesting is we know that you're overworked. We know you hate meetings and committees. Let's be real, right? So we're not asking you to be a part of it, but we are asking you to see how you feel about, I'm willing to take this ball wherever it goes and organize, and this is David Cox's suggestion, it's not mine. I'm not taking credit for it. He suggested a public volunteer advisory group. In other words, a gopher tortoise task force for our county, that some influential people can be a part of it. Maybe some of our environmental groups in our county. We all get together. We form a gopher tortoise plan for our county, a model for safety and protection with a balance of land development, with the balance of new landowners coming in and how we can maneuver all that, and then presenting this to all of you for your approval or changes. So that's the second thing that we're asking. And the last is, which I think is the most important, is, can we go to the one with the balance? Can you go to backwards? Oh, I'm sorry. And yeah. No, it was there it is. So it's a balance of rights. Balance of rights for the life of gopher tortoises that have been here on our earth 60 million years. Do they have to die because we're not taking care of them? No. We just need to follow the state law and make provisions when necessary. So, to create a balance of rights for all gopher tortoises to live safely in our county with on land less than an acre, and to honor the rights of our landowners that are coming in, as well as our general population, our community, and of course, honoring our county and the dedication that all of you individually have offered in keeping our county safe. And what our goal is really, it has to be a win-win approach for everyone involved. It has to be an open conversation, a discussion, honoring, and that's where we're coming from. So I hope that you consider and give it some thoughts in your mind. I know you have a lot on your plate and a lot of issues, but this one will keep, I feel, the balance of our nature that we love so much and our wildlife. Thank you so much for listening. Any
Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't pay them. I didn't pay any of them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. All right, Commissioners, we'll take a 10-minute break. Be back at 10:47. All right, thank you. We'll reopen the meeting. We're moving on to public notice items. Counselor.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. We have two public notice items for this afternoon. We have a public notice of a public hearing on schedule for February 7th, 2023. This is to consider an ordinance concerning county administrator residency requirement. And then additionally, we have a public hearing notice of an amendment concerning a change to Section 100.03 amendment or repeal of ordinances of Chapter 100 of our Indian River County Code. It's regarding codifying our ordinance code, which is something we do annually per Florida statutes. Again, these are two public hearings, and they're both scheduled for February 7th, 2023. And with that, I turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Moving on to county administrators matters. 11A, the appointment of District 19 medical examiner. Mr. Zito.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I received a memorandum from the State Medical Examiners Commission regarding the gubernatorial appointment term of the District Medical Examiner, District 19, which, as you know, comprises the Martin, Okeechobee, St. Lucie, and Indian River County. That appointment will expire on July 1st, 2023, so pursuant to the Administrative Code, the Medical Examiners Commission will consider recommending the incumbent, Patricia Aronica, MD, or other qualified candidates for the appointment, and the state is asking for our input. Pardon me. So there's a simple form that they attach and ask just for the commission to check favorable, unfavorable, or no opinion. And since we've had two search and appointment committee, I thought you could describe your reaction to her qualifications and interview process and getting to know the incumbent and make a recommendation.
I would allow that. Commissioner Fleischer, turn your mic on.
I will say that I had the pleasure and opportunity to be on that committee, the selection committee, and as well as then Sheriff Darrell Law, now Commissioner Law, was on the committee. There was approximately 30 people in the room from all walks. Many included were doctors, practicing physicians, and then Dr. Middleman was in the room. We had the opportunity to interview many applicants, all medical professionals that were medical examiners in other jurisdictions or adjunct medical examiners. And I'll tell you, there was no fanfare and party or extravagance. There was direct conversation, interview, and we spent a great deal of time with all of the applicants. Some were impressive. Dr. Patricia Aronica was absolutely the most impressive. She was confident, clear, knew her subject matter to well beyond. I know I looked over to Dr. Middleman during the time, and he was just grinning. Yeah. And Dr. Middleman was not known for his grin. He was known for getting the job done. He had worked so many cases. He just wanted a clear choice for his succession. And I wish you were present during his comments to what he felt about Dr. Patricia Aronica, because many believed that it was a great opportunity, working as a medical examiner for 4 counties in one of the center counties, and then looking at the facility was in need of address, to put it mildly. Dr. Aronica said the location is of concern, but not my primary concern. That I want to be able to deliver the service that you desire for your communities, and I can do it. And she talked about her past, and again, not being medical practitioners, we we listened intentfully, and during this past time, now I spent a lot of time with Dr. Middleman in my former career, as well as I trust Sheriff Law did as well. And you really get to know a guy when they're doing that type of work. Just to keep it on this level. She had it. She has it, and I'm confident that her continued placement in Indian River County as our medical examiner for all 4 counties will be extremely valuable, and I hope that she doesn't get any of the heavy workload that Dr. Middleman got. As you recall, he had responded to the ValueJet incident and had to work that case, that which he talked about afterwards, but it was so labor-intensive and just exhausting. And Dr. Ronica had some cases that were not to that scope, but they were widespread cases, and she explained a few of them, and we were quite impressed as law enforcement officers. So I think I trust Commissioner Law might have more to add too.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you, and Commissioner Fletcher's right. There were sheriffs, police chiefs, public defenders, several assistant state attorneys, and I think, Commissioner, we had over 30, maybe over 30 applicants, and by far, she came from Baltimore, and you know the volume, or you may not know the volume of crimes in Baltimore, and she handled that, and she came down here. She's doing really well, so I support moving this forward to the governor's office.
Commissioners? I too, I certainly wasn't in on what y'all on hiring her, but since we've been dealing with the medical examiner facilities, I've had a couple of conversations with her and a one-on-one conversation with her, and saw how she presented herself at the meetings with regard to such an issue like this that's very troubling for the counties, because it's an unfunded mandate basically that we have to deal with, whether we like it or not. And she handled it very well. She understood that. She understood that it's a lot of that is an unfunded mandate for us at the county, and she was very respectful of that. But also knowing that she has to have the facility to perform her job properly. So I would. That's about all I could say on that, but I will certainly, if y'all have nothing to say, I'll certainly take a motion. The motion needs to be favorable, unfavorable, or no opinion, correct? So.
We'll take that motion to ensure that she has a very favorable option.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Fleischer for favorable. Second by Commissioner Lohr. Anybody in the audience wish to comment on the motion before us? Seeing none, Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We're favorable. Any opposed? Favorable recognition for Dr. Ronica passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, departmental matters. We're into general services, 12C1, consideration for Adopt a Park program. And I see we have our Parks Director and Interim General Services Director here today. Ms. Powell, it's all yours.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to speak today. I have with me Ms. Tammy Danino, who is the requester of our Adopt a Park program, and we're very happy that she contacted our office, our park superintendent, in the summer. It takes a while to get things done, and we appreciate her patience. However, Adopt a Park is a program that we would have thought that we had already had, but after looking into it, we have formalized through Public Works an Adopt a Road project for which children would not be suitable for those sort of activities close to the roadways. So it was a little bit to our surprise that we realized that we did not have a formal Adopt a Park program. So I would like to thank Ms. Danino for her contacting us, for bringing it to our attention, and we're very much looking forward to being able to work with her organization as well as other organizations. And we would like to thank her Cub Scout Pack 595 for initiating this, and we are delighted to have her here with us today. We'll be looking for you to approve staff's recommendation, which would formalize our Adopt a Park program after review and approval by the county attorney and also our risk manager. But all of the backup is there for your review. And I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Tammy for a second.
Hello. Thank you for this opportunity. It's nice to meet you all. We are heavily involved in conservation projects, and one of the things we were trying to do is keep the area clean. We do a lot of beach cleanup. We do park cleanups already, just not formally. Each year as a Cub Scout, it's required to do a certain number of service hours. So I looked into the Adopting a Road, and you have to be at least 12. Cub Scouts is kindergarten to like 11, so we don't qualify for that. Plus, they're not really listening to you yet about running in the road. So I did do some research and was looking for an Adopt a Park program because we clean Charles Park quite often already, and I couldn't find anything. So I shot an email to the Parks Department, Brad, I think was his name, and unfortunately I didn't hear back until August, but when I did, it was all positive, and that he told me back then that it was definitely something that he wanted to work on. So I'm here today with hopes that we could get this program started.
Commissioners, any questions?
Yeah,
I think it's awesome,
Great.
you know, that we're doing. I mean, we've done, like I said, we've done the Adopt a Road and trash pickup on the road for years, and I think that's awesome that we're moving into the parks. Probably long overdue, actually, but thank you so much. I think it's a great idea. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Traditionally, I work with Eagle Scouts. They're a little older. They do projects, and they have great impact on our environment and our conservation and cleanup. It's a special group, the Eagle Scout group. Cub Scouts getting their start is equally as important, and you're setting them on the right track. You're not only a benefit to the community, but you're also molding young individuals with the proper mindset to be serious about our community and our conservation efforts. So with that, I'll be happy to move forward.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Fleischer, second by Commissioner Moss. Anybody from the public wish to comment on the motion before us?
Just how to get more information to be an applicant, Beth, where would they start?
We can provide the information at ircgov.com /Parks and Recreation, and as soon as this is passed, we'll get the application started there. And it's a great way for us to recognize our nonprofit organizations who are contributing to all of our parks, recreation areas, and also this will include our conservation areas. So we thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
What a benefit.
All right, seeing nobody from the public wishing to comment, Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes 5-0. Thank you so much. It's a great idea.
And I look forward to being here on Thursday with my boys to meet you.
All right.
I'm the same person.
All right, moving on to 12E, Information Technology. Information Technology Policy Additions to the Administrative Policy Manual. Mr. Russell. Mr. Russell, I can tell you that was the most riveting reading.
I have no doubt.
Better than a Tom Clancy novel.
Equally long as well, right? Good morning, Commissioners. Dan Russell, Information Technology Director. This morning I'm here to seek your approval to incorporate 21 new policies into our administrative policy manual. These policies are IT and cybersecurity policies. And to give you a little bit of context, in July of last year, subsection 282.3185 of the Florida statutes was enacted. And this, in particular, this subsection places new cybersecurity responsibilities on local governments, some of which include that local governments are to adopt cybersecurity standards, that safeguard their data and information technology resources. The cybersecurity standards that are adopted must be consistent with the generally accepted best practices for cybersecurity as outlined in the NIST, that's the National Institute of Standards and Technology Cybersecurity Framework. And then each county with a population of 75,000 or greater must adopt these standards and report that to the Florida Digital Service prior to January 1st of 2024. As I'm sure you're all aware, for the past several years, the Indian River County Information Technology Department has been aligning with the best practices recommended by the NIST cybersecurity framework. And over the course of the last year in particular, the IT department has been developing the policies that are before you today. The approach that we've taken to that is to create a requirements trace matrix and take those requirements, over 1,000 requirements in this NIST document, and map those into our policies and our implementation. And so these policies incorporate all of the requirements from NIST that require a policy to be created for an organization. As you can see, it's pretty voluminous, right? 21 in total. So this morning, our recommendation is to codify our intent to safeguard our data and our information technology resources, and to comply with the new subsection of the statute. The IT department recommends the board approve the incorporation of these policies. There are no funding requirements directly associated with incorporating these policies into our APM, but I do want you to be aware that there are portions of these policies that, as we work to implement them and sustain them, could in the future have funding requirements associated with them. And of course, we bring those to you in our annual budget. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
That's amazing. He summarized 200 pages in less than 5 minutes.
It's talent.
Mr. Chair, you said you went through it, so do you like to elaborate on it a little bit more?
If you want, we
Uh,
can. As long as you want. Any questions of staff, commissioners? No. Dan, great job. We make
Yes.
fun of it, but it's probably one, if not the most important things in the county today, with the criminal aspects and the hackers that are out there, that if we're in trouble, we could be in deep trouble. And I applaud your efforts and appreciate what you and your staff have done to make us as safe as possible. I know you can't, stop everybody, but as long as we're doing a good job.
We're certainly on the right
Keeping
track.
them away at bay as best we can.
Thank you.
So I appreciate it. So thank you very much. So no more questions of Mr. Russell?
No, but I'd be happy to move approval of all 700, I'm sorry, it's not 700, but all of the policies attached.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Moss. Anybody from the public wish to comment on the motion before us? Seeing none, Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Awesome,
Dan.
thank you. Moving on to G, Public Works, 12G1, change order number 3, 66th Avenue roadway widening 49th Street to 69th Street, construction of 53rd Street signalized intersection in River County 1505. Mr. Spurka.
Commissioners, I've only got like 4 pages, not 700, so it'll be real short. Back in 2022, the board approved us to move forward with widening the bridge at 53rd Street as part of the 66th Avenue project. We've got that design completed. The board approved change order number 2 to add that to the contract. What I have before you today is change order number 3 to provide a signalized intersection at this same location of 53rd Street and 66th Avenue. Basically, we've made the intersection large. I will tell you that signalization is going to be a needed thing at this intersection, especially because we're currently talking to the developers on 53rd Street that are west of 58th Avenue. So they're trying to partner together along with us that will build 53rd Street further to the west. That'll leave a short piece for the county to build at the same time. Hopefully we can partner with these guys and get this connection further to the west, so we have 53rd Street will connect from US 1 all the way to 66th Avenue. And then 66th Avenue will be a 4-lane corridor north and south up to 510 and State Road 60. 510 is getting ready to be blown out by FDOT to be a 4-lane road within the next 5 years. So this is going to be a great route, not only for emergency evacuation of the island, but just a route to move our residents throughout the county. With that, HEC has provided us a proposal for $814,277 to construct a signalized intersection at this location. Funding's available in the transportation impact fees, and staff recommends board approve change order number 3, authorizing additional funding in the amount of $814,277. The total new contract amount will be $34,329,232, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of staff? Commissioners?
Move staff recommendation.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Rohr, second by Commissioner Fleischer. Anybody from the public wish to comment on the motion before us? Seeing none. Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes 5-0. We are on a roll today with 5-0.
Don't jinx it.
Don't slow it down now.
All right, that passes 5-0. Thank you. All right, 12G2, request for stormwater summer camp, and I'm glad to see you're not presenting this, Mr. Perka.
Wow. One and done.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, I'm Alexis, the stormwater educator, for those I haven't actually officially met yet. Good morning. Thank you for letting me come back to the board about Summer Camp 2023. I do have a presentation today. It is very similar to the one most of you just saw in November, but I think it's worth recapping how amazing last summer went before asking for approval of this summer. So I'm asking that once again this summer, the stormwater staff is able to hold a summer camp at the Pelican Island Audubon House, partnered with Pelican Island Audubon Society. We this summer are hoping to actually expand and offer a 2-week summer camp for each student. And that will be both an extension of their Audubon Advocates 5th grade program, which covers many environmental disciplines about our area, and also including that stormwater intensive summer camp that we had last year. The projected camp dates, you can see there will be 2 back-to-back weeks, both in June and July. And as a reminder, this is a very nerdy camp, so we talk about a lot of different scientific disciplines rather than just stormwater and pollution. Stormwater actually can cover all of these different areas. So throughout just even the stormwater intensive part of camp, students get to learn about biological diversity, they get to tour the landfill, they tour some of our stormwater parks, they get very hands-on with nature, they learn how to kayak and see the lagoon firsthand, among all these other activities, as well as now their extension of their advocate program. So it's really so much science in too little of time. We felt last summer in 1 week, it was just really cramming it in for these kids, and there was more we wanted to do. So we really felt that offering 2 weeks total gives the kids much more well-rounded time to soak it all in. The longer you spend time with children, the longer they absorb and really take a personal responsibility and connect you with what they're learning, with what they love. So here is the video that we would like to post as the promotional camp video. It covers a lot of what we did last year and has the campers personally give their testimonies and experiences and promote why other students should sign up.
To me, stormwater camp means conservation and educating other people on how to protect specifically the lagoon.
It means a lot to me. I like learning about the birds, I like learning about how the lagoon with the pollution. So when I grow up, maybe I could help with that.
To me, camp means going out and making friends.
To me, camp is helping the environment in
raising awareness about the pollution in the lagoon. Camp is physically and mentally engaging for all the kids here.
To me, camp is a way to work on your social skills and make new friends. Honestly, camp means to me just, having fun.
I'm learning about stormwater and like the litter and chemicals and pollution that gets trapped up in it, and then it goes into the lagoon and pollutes the lagoon.
I pick up my own dog's poop because it pollutes the lagoon because it has bacteria and nutrients. It makes algae grow, which stops photosynthesis.
Every day, people create 500 tons of trash.
People should sign up for camp because it's a fun experience. You learn a lot of things and you get to go out, get sunshine, be outside away from home, and still learn while doing it.
I think people should come to camp because it helps you with protecting the lagoon, which is a very good resource for the environment.
I'm Alexis from Indian River County Stormwater, and together, partnered with the Pelican Island Audubon Society, we want to offer your student an environmental adventure to remember. So come join us down at the Audubon House for a summer full of inspiration and exploration.
Audubon Birdhouse.
So my favorite quote from that video is from our camper Ocean, who on his own came up with stating that camp is physically and mentally engaging for all the kids here. And they were just so smart, and there is nothing more rewarding than seeing these kids, after the time we've had with them, appreciate our lagoon more and learn how to teach others to do the same. And they really do take away this sense of responsibility that they are the future, and they are going to be the ones that help the lagoon stay healthy and safe for all of us to enjoy. So I think in the budget we had, it's only $700 plus my staff time for camp. That's including now 4 weeks of camp, both through the Stormwater Intensive and helping with the extension of the Audubon Advocates Program. And we really couldn't do this without all of these partners from different areas of the county, including Indian River Recycling, the Sebastian Inlet State Park, the Homeless Children's Foundation, and then, of course, Pelican Island Audubon Society. And without Pelican Island Audubon Society and their facilities and their van, camp would not be possible. So with me today is actually Donna Halloran, the Executive Director, and she would also like to say a few words about camp.
Thank you. So I am Donna Halloran. I'm the Executive Director at Pelican Island Audubon. And we have been running an Audubon Advocate Program for the last 8 years. It's an exceptional 14-week program after school for 4 underserved schools, Title I schools. We also provide seasonal camps for underrepresented students from the Homeless Children's Foundation. We've been doing that for 7 years. These children would not have the opportunity to learn what they have learned without us being able to provide these camps. We had some exceptional students that came to us. They are selected. There's a lot of camps for kids to go to, but they really do a selection process to make sure that we're getting the kids that really have an interest in science and that hopefully will make a change in the future. I really do want to thank you all for offering us this opportunity to do it again. We are excited to continue growing this partnership, and I will say that the Stormwater Camp is a premier camp that we've offered. And these kids really have learned a lot, and it's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Commissioners, any questions of staff?
No, thank you very much. It looks fascinating and fun, and I'll move to approve.
I'm sure a commissioner could attend.
Is there an age limit?
Is there an age limit?
There is an age limit.
You have no more free time. Oh.
But we take volunteers.
Good, that's for sure.
Mr. Chair,
Any questions of Alexa?
Just,
Mike?
Alexis, I think this is a wonderful opportunity to exhibit at the STEAM Fest. So if there's a way you can put a booth together, we'll ask Mr. Spirit to maybe flex your time out so you can spend a Saturday with the kids and promote the camp at the same time.
I'm currently unavailable for STEAM. I was supposed to be there already, and I had a family event happen.
Well, maybe we can rally some Parks and Rec folks
Yes,
to pinch hit for you, maybe.
And I do have a few other upcoming weekend events that we will be able to promote camp as well.
Fantastic.
But in the past, you've had no difficulty in getting a large gathering.
No.
It appears from the video.
No, it's very fun, so people are excited to sign up.
Great.
That's great. Any further questions? Commissioners?
I think you had a motion
Yeah,
by
I
Commissioner
move
Moore,
to approve,
seconded by
yes.
myself.
Who made the second?
I did.
Motion by Commissioner Moss, second by Commissioner Fleischer to approve the request for summer camp 2023. Anybody from the audience wish to comment on the motion before us? Seeing none. Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, that also passes 5-0. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies.
Is Mr. Sparkle one of the instructors?
You don't want to scare them away right off the bat.
All right. Moving on to 13, County Attorneys Matters. 13A, City of Sebastian Graves Brothers Annex Update. Counselor.
Thank you very much. On Wednesday last week, the City of Sebastian City Council had a workshop concerning the Graves Brothers annexation. A copy of the most recent version of the annexation agreement is attached to this agenda item. Also attached is the letter that then County Administrator Jason Brown had sent to the city back in December expressing the county's points and concerns that we had with the draft that we had seen in November. The key, and I said this on Wednesday night at the city council meeting, is that the county will be providing significant services to this property. We were talking about the county will be the ones responsible for providing fire and rescue service. The county will be the ones who are responsible for providing county roads that serve this property. And finally, and certainly not least importantly, is that the county will be responsible for providing water and wastewater services to this property. Please understand, it is not county staff's desire to seek litigation against Graves Brothers or the City of Sebastian. It is not our intent to file some form of 164 mediation process initiation. But the first time that the county heard that there are potentially going to be 10,771, and Councilmember McPartlin, I hope I got the number right this time, is on Wednesday night. So this has been going through a process of annexation that's had changes and changes through years. And so only Wednesday night did we finally hear this was the new magic number that Public Works is going to have to deal with, that Dave Johnson and Fire Rescue is going to have to deal with, that Sean Liskey and our utility department are going to have to deal with. And so when I compare hearing that number and hearing the discussion and seeing the draft that was presented and discussed on Wednesday night last week, I go back to the letter that Indian River County sent to the city back in December. We told them it is critical that grid roadways, particularly at the collector and arterial level, be provided to a standard that ensures consistency with prevailing local engineering practices and guidelines. And we made some suggested language changes that would assist in facilitating the county being able to provide county road service for this property. We also had comments aimed at the water utilities. The letter we talked about in December referenced to potentially 9,157 residential units. We're now talking 10,771 residential units. You're talking about 2 people per home. I said this again on Wednesday night at City of Sebastian. You're talking 21,000 people. You're talking about a city larger than the city of Vero Beach and one that's coming close to what the current size of the City of Sebastian is. And what we were looking at is this is talking about 3 million of gallons per day for water. And it is certainly our intention to provide services to this property, but as we stated in our letter, we will need to continue to coordinate with the property owner as development happens in the future. Our biggest takeaway and concern is that we're simply just kicking the can down the road. The city is going to annex this property. We don't have an opposition with anyone annexing property into a city for whatever purposes they're doing. The issue is when you're doing so and you don't take the key necessary steps at the front end to understand how that impacts waste services are going to be provided. And I think our take-home message that was in the letter that was delivered in December stays the same. The most important take-home is that the county will need additional contributions from the property owner, such as a dedicated water and or wastewater plant site, in order to commit to and plan for the provision of water and wastewater services to the proposed annexation area. We are simply looking for a better way to coordinate on this. I think it makes sense to deal with that today. I had expressed to the city council that I hope they will take these comments seriously and incorporate these into the final version that's presented at their city council meeting on February 8th. City staff, county staff at this point, looking for direction and guidance from the board as to how you wish to move forward on this. The recommendation that I have is, we send another letter to the city expressing our concerns with regards to the impacts on those 3 types of service issues, and provide that as soon as possible so that they are prepared to have those in writing. And with that, I turn it back over to the board for comment and certainly for any public input as well. And I'm obviously available for questions.
Thank you, Counselor. Any questions, commissioners? Any comments?
Chair, I think back to when Commissioner Adams spoke about this, about getting things settled and lined up on the front end before this thing goes too far. I don't understand the reluctancy in the city providing us with some type of direction. I just don't understand that. Our December letter outlines what we think with some retractions. Additionally, our visioning plan includes items like this, our water, and I see Sean in the audience. That's huge. We've been talking about water since I've been up here and years before that. So some direction from the city of Sebastian would certainly be grateful. Mr. Reingold, I don't know if a letter is the right thing. I mean, obviously, we would be going on the record yet again, and if that's the desire, I would make the recommendation that we instruct General Counsel to draft yet another letter, and for our approval to get it there before the February meeting of City of Sebastian.
I'll second that, and I appreciate your comments, and those are, I think, the ongoing concerns is we are going to be expected to provide services, and at this point, I don't think staff's been pretty clear that they don't have enough information to be able to plan for the ability to provide those services. And I think my concern is that we're going to get to a point where we've kind of said that, and we're going to be blamed for not being able to provide them. But we don't have enough information to plan. Utilities is going through a master planning process right now. As you mentioned, community development is going through the visioning process. This is the time to really make sure we as a county understand what the expectation of us is going to be in the future. And I know from the city's perspective, that's something that will be worked out at a later date. But for us, because it takes so long to put those plans in place and then fund them, a later date for us is going to push the ability to deliver those much further down the road. And I don't, that's not a situation I think we want to be in. We're trying to be as collaborative as possible. So I would agree with you and support that motion.
I have a question. I'm not sure to whom it would go, but what happens if we can't provide water? Is a wonderful example. How about our utilities director? Any?
And as Sean's coming down, I can certainly jump in. I mean, at the end of the day, and I think even the property owner would admit and acknowledge this, if we don't have the capability of providing water, this development goes nowhere. I mean, without water, there's no project.
Yeah,
John?
and I would support that. I mean, it's really difficult, but, I mean, to Commissioner Adams' point, what we need to be able to do is plan. And part of that planning is to understand that there is at least some sort of land that is, you know, provided to the county to support water and sewer in the future. You know, when you think about what Dylan said, you know, the population that they would be adding, the amount of water is, you know, around 3 million gallons, rough, you know, plus or minus. I mean, that's a rough estimate. But if you think about what our current consumptive use permit is, 12 million gallons, that's a quarter of what we currently are allowed. So it's a significant impact to the area. And it's certainly something that we need to plan for. And if we don't have an idea of where we're going to be able, and I'm not saying a specific location, but if we don't have an idea of what that land available to us would be, it's really difficult for us to plan. And I think, you know, Dylan kind of keyed on it of kicking it down the road. If we just wait to do this when the developers come in, you know, we're going to be arguing with the developers about what that land needs to be, and it's going to just delay the process even further. So, you know, what we can do now to at least set aside some property for the utility is key to kind of moving this forward. So,
And if I may, all the proper planning in the world is not going to guarantee us the expansion of our consumptive use permit. So these things are not solely in the discretion of the county.
And just so the public knows, when Sean mentions 3 million, that's 3 million additional gallons per day.
and mind you, that's at build out, right? So, I mean, but we still have to, you know, if you're thinking about what that land mass is and what it can support, you have to be able to plan for that and be prepared for that, right? And so you have to ensure you have those resources to handle that build out once it occurs.
And we also have to have availability for use prior to the build.
Absolutely. And so there's a lot of things at play there, but, you know, and those are some of the conversations we would have to have with, you know, with the current landowner as well. But, you know, we've had those conversations about, you know, wells and where that water resources might come from and what's that water availability and where, I mean, we currently have, you know, a number of wells. We have 7 wells at each of our water treatment plants. We got 14 wells, and that's the 12 million gallon, you know, 12 plus right now million gallons that we have allocated to us. So, you know, we can't just assume that those wells are going to be able to, you know, handle that. We're going to have additional water resources. You know, we need to look at where that water is going to come from, and we need to be able to plan that. And it's kind of working those issues out with, you know, with the developers as that comes into play. So,
Mr. Chair, as council pointed out early on in the discussion, when we brought up the water issue, it was clearly thrown out as, well, the county wants to stop us at all costs. I didn't mean anybody in specific, Councilman. But as a matter of fact, I'll point out that Councilman McPartlin was, in the beginning, the lone voice that said, we have to show a plan. We need something. We need to show what we're going to do. And that was the nexus for, we have to show and identify how much we can provide, because we are the provider of record. There's one-stop shopping. And with that, again, the perception was, I see you're going to start litigation here. And that was the farthest thing from reality. We identified very clearly on the onset that that western area is going to eventually be developed someday. While we have no plans, the annexation is the catalyst for the development, and you're bringing this to the table. We, being the provider, we need to ensure that we can service the area. There was a lot of confusion in the beginning. I hope, and I'm very glad that both administrations have been able to talk, that our council has been able to talk to get a warmer understanding of our intent, as opposed to they're just trying to stop this thing, because that is, again, and on record, that's the farthest thing from reality. We just want to ensure that we can do the job, because we're going to be held accountable, and that water may not be available unless we kick it up. We may have to have an additional plant. We may have to have an additional filtration process. We may have to find how much water we can actually draw before we're at our limits. And without having the basic plan, without the information, how can we properly assess that and say it's a go? How can we put all the weight on that man's shoulders? I don't care how many consultants we get. I don't care how much money we put into it to ensure, identify. It's still not going to come up right unless we know the needs. So I'm grateful for a few of the council members who have outwardly spoken about the needs and the availability. So once again, council, thanks for bringing that out, because it was a little contentious in the beginning. And I think it's getting better, and it's going to get even better. And then as we go forward, we'll be able to provide, if we can, if we identify. So fully supportive.
And if I may, I mean, I agree. I don't, you know, we're not trying to stop this. I think what we're just trying to do is understand and help them understand that we need to be out in front of it, right? And, you know, not to quote a movie from Field of Dreams, but, you know, they say, build it and they'll come. Unfortunately, that's not as simple as if they build the homes, we're going to bring them water. We've got to make sure that we've got the water so that that development can occur. And that's to Dylan's point, is if they don't have water, they're not going to be able to develop. And so we need to make sure that we can actually provide them that water when those homes start to be built.
Commissioners, I would agree with everything that's been said. I'm not going to repeat what all y'all have said, but I think Sean made a very good point right there. This is just about planning and being able to service the community. If you don't have the water, you don't have a project. And while it may sound easy, it's not. And it's a long-range plan. It's an impact to the county. It's an impact to us. It's an impact to our services, our employees, our planning, funding, all that sort of stuff. So it's so vitally important that we do get ahead of the curveball way before even the pitcher throws it, because we need to. There's a lot of components of this that we could probably put in a 200-page document, just like Dan did with the computers, without a doubt. Probably be even a bigger book when it's all finished. But I would just ask the City Council, Sebastian, and the developer and the landowner to just make sure that they consider that for us, it's not only a huge impact for the city of Sebastian, a lot of planning and things to go in with this project, but it's also a huge impact on county government and county services to move forward with this project, whether we're talking water, whether we're talking sheriff's office, whether we're talking, even though that would be in the city, but still the impact on law enforcement. But with fire rescue, this could impact fire rescue. We're talking 21,000 people. That's bigger than the city of Vero Beach. And it'll take more than just one fire rescue station there. So, that needs to be dealt with. Land needs to be set aside, and services for that need to be funded properly. So, I see Councilman McPartland here. I would just ask to relay that message to the county, to the city staff, and to your fellow commissioners or fellow councilmen at the right time, that we're, like Commissioner Fleischer said, this is certainly not something we're trying to stop or negate or anything, but we just want to know what we can do to provide services and make sure we have the services to provide. That's so vitally important for us and for your project to move forward. So do you wish to comment or anything?
Well, good morning. Bob McParland, City of Sebastian. I came here for some other items, but, seeing you put me on the spot. But this is just for my own clarification, is I'm only one of five, okay? And I understand, no water, no project. Everybody wants to know, what's the most houses that are gonna go up there? I would love to know that number too, okay? What's the most water that can go there? Can somebody tell me what the most amount of water that they can do and it's possible? Do you guys have that number? Because I get the flip side. I'm the guy in the middle, and I want the answer. Because I
would say
remember
that's
several
things we
years
need to
ago.
find out. That's one of the components we need to
I
find out.
remember several years ago, and there was also, there's several new members here, but there's a couple that remember. I remember the 750 project, and that was 7 counties planning for the next 50 years. And the number one thing on there was water. In Indian River County, they wanted out of that. They wanted no idea because there was all this other stuff. I think water is extremely important. I'm sitting here for this because there's a lot of stuff that goes through my own head, and that's probably what gets me in most trouble at all. Water is extremely important. Fire, police, I'm with that. The one that wasn't mentioned, and nobody even talks about it, is the garbage. And we had a great exhibition on the garbage. We're looking at increasing the size. So that's another one, that goes in my head. That dump, you guys talk about. When that dump is full, you know what the cost is for a brand new dump? And I don't see that being discussed. But let me go back, and Sean is fantastic, every interaction I've ever had with him. So, I just like to know, what is the capacity right now? So when I have a conversation, that I know what I'm talking about.
So you asked an interesting question about what's available, currently, or what's available to that development. I mean, technically, right now, nothing's available to that development. I mean, we've got a consumptive use permit that's at 12.8 million gallons a day. And we are currently exceeding that, I wouldn't say, somewhat occasionally, we are exceeding that amount today. So we're in the process of upgrading our consumptive use permit to 16 million gallons a day. Theoretically, when we're looking at planning, that allotment is already accounted for in the development of the current urban service boundary. So we have a current urban service boundary that doesn't include the annexation. So that 16 MGD that we're currently trying to get approved through St. John's is already theoretically accounted for based off of development that can occur within that urban service boundary. So if you think about that, when you think about adding an annexation that's the size of the current city of Sebastian or the size of the city of Vero Beach, we don't know where that water's coming from currently, and that's what we need to plan, and that's what we need to be prepared for. And so what we're suggesting is that all we would really are looking for is some sort of assurance that there will be land set aside for perhaps a future water treatment plant, perhaps a wastewater treatment plant, a repump station if that's necessary, but some sort of assurance that there will be land that the county will have available to it. And we don't necessarily need to know where that land is, but one of the things we've talking about with another developer is a certain allotment of land. So whether it's 180 acres or 80 acres or 100 acres, but some sort of assurance that that property will be available to us so that we can plan and we can look to the future and plan for where that water might be coming from. Now, I can't tell you where it's going to come from. Is it going to come from additional wells? I don't know the answer to that. Is it going to come from, desalination? Is it going to come from other options? Today I can't tell you, but those are certainly things that we would need to start planning based off of, again, a known number of homes. And that's why we're often concerned about what that known number of homes is that says, okay, we need to think about current usage, for what we call an equivalent residential unit or ERU. We base it off of that ERU, and so we have a usage amount of 250 gallons per day per ERU. And so we look at that and say, okay, based off of the number of residents that would be there, here's what we would expect the amount of usage to be. That's what we have to plan for as far as usage for that development. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I mean, there's a lot more to that, but that's it in a nutshell.
So if they did what, in accordance, when you look at the agreement, this is like, I call it, a guy I used to play golf with, Mike's math. Mike's math works out to be possibly 10,771 homes. And you're saying if 10,771 homes went there, that would need to have 3 million gallons per day?
when you factor in the residential use with what might be also associated with commercial use, that's roughly what again, these are rough estimates. I mean, we'd have to.
Right, right, I'm not,
But yeah, we're estimating that would be roughly around 3 million gallons a day.
Okay. And you could support that today?
No.
No.
No, you can't support that.
Cannot support that.
Okay, so if I came in and I planned 11,000 homes on that property right now, it would require 3 million gallons a day. I came in, you would not approve it because you don't have the water.
Don't currently.
Is that right? And that's what I heard from you also, Mr. Rangel. If you can't provide the water, there'll be no building, right? So if you're gonna put up more homes than you can do water, they're not gonna go up. Am I understanding that correctly or incorrectly?
Correctly.
Correct.
Okay, so that's kind of what's, that is a factor, and I believe also, I could be wrong, I've been known to be wrong many times, is that the discussions for the water and the sewer, that's between the county and the developer. I don't believe the city has been sitting in on those, correct? I think they had an initial, and then there were subsequent meetings just between the landowner and the county. The city was not in those meetings, I'm pretty sure.
I think we've had one meeting perhaps where, yes, it was the city was not involved in that meeting in the discussion with the landowner.
Because that's between the landowner and the county for those, correct? Or am I out of line, or? I'm just trying to get from my own clarification here, because.
Well, I would say that it's in the city's best interest to make sure that there is adequate property to provide the water and sewer necessary. Otherwise, the projects that you guys want to happen are not going to happen. So but in my opinion, it's between all of us, the city, the county, and the developer, to ensure that any obstacles that might come up down the road are taken care of at this point when we can really address it to help you guys get to your end goal. And if you aren't involved in it from the annexation, I think the point that we're trying to make is if you guys aren't involved in that conversation at the initial annexation agreement stage, you can't ensure that your interests as a city are being addressed by the developer. And by pushing it solely to the developer, you're taking your ability to reach your goals out of the equation. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And you make it very simple, and that's kind of what I'm saying, is there was some conversation where the city was not involved. Whether or not the reason, I don't know, I have additional duties every day myself. So, okay. I mean, I know. Again, I'm 1 of 5. I think also this, is it gonna be perfect? It's never gonna be perfect, okay? I think this go at the annexation is a lot better than the previous one. I think we have hit some pitfalls, but I don't think it's anything insurmountable. And I appreciate, Mr. Rangel coming up to the meetings. I think I've been down every time you guys have discussed it. I've been down here, and I think, so we're
Well,
looking
and-
at the 8th. I'm sure the draft that you have, there may be some changes, one or the other, and I'm sure that, there's always changes, but I will do my best. I understand what you're saying. I have the same concerns and understanding. But again, what I'm hearing and what I understand is if they come in there with some unbelievable amount and there's no water to do it, it's not going to be done. Right? So.
Well, may I ask you, and I know you're not speaking for all 5, you're speaking only for yourself, but in your opinion, would it be better to have another meeting with all parties than a letter, a second letter?
I mean, a letter is good because, again, I don't want to be the guy, I don't want to be the messenger. Everybody hates the messenger, and even though I can deliver a message pretty good most of the time, a message would be good, and then maybe at the February 8th meeting, some more representation. I mean, all of you, except Commissioner Lohr, because he just got on, but you guys came to the workshops in the past, which I thought was exceptional, and, some of the meetings you've been there, and, do the best we can, and that's.
And I don't want you to think that we have limited lives, but we also watch the meetings as well, the ones we can't be at. And in addition, one would be remiss if they were not thinking that every one of the council members in Sebastian are watching and have watched this meeting as well. So I believe the intent is clear, and I believe that the information is being digested, and I think we are getting to a better understanding, as I suggested earlier. It's getting there. It's almost.
I agree.
Would you agree?
And watching the meetings, being a meeting junkie that I am.
Right, yeah.
However,
Better than
to
Netflix.
be in the room, there's a whole other atmosphere that is missed on there.
Yes.
And public reaction, and also in those realms. But yes, the meetings are, and that's what I'm also, because I will tell them that this meeting happened this morning, and this will be up on the video, and I encourage all the council members. Everybody should be watching what's going on in the county, what's going on in the cities and everything. And I think your staff has always watched what's going on in the municipalities, and in the past, the county administrator and the city attorney, I know. And they've been very accessible to myself, I can speak for, so.
We even talk about you guys, and most of it is favorable, surprisingly.
I saw earlier, it was,
Yeah.
you know, they wanted you to follow us.
Yeah.
You know, how to deal with the tortoises, which I
Yeah.
think is great, so. If there's any other but again, you know, nothing's gonna be perfect, and I'm not gonna sit here and say it is, but your concerns are my concerns, I will share them with, but again, it's, you know, it's the city. Okay?
Bob, my desire is, being a county commissioner, and especially being chairman, is that we just keep a good line of communication open for this, because it affects both of us greatly. Y'all, it's gonna be a demand on your services, y'all's time, y'all's planning, and it's also gonna be a demand on our services and our planning. And we just need to make sure we keep a really good line of communication open so the right hand knows what the left is doing.
Correct. And I appreciate everybody up here, so, you know, and I'm always available. Anybody have any questions or anything, but thank you.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Bob.
Commissioners, any further questions? Anything? Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Lohr and a second by Commissioner Adams to send per your suggestion.
Yeah, I have a clarification question on the motion before we open it up for public discussion. I heard from Commissioner Lohr to draft a letter and then bring it back to this board for review before it goes out. My understanding is, and I just want to make sure if that was, is a timing issue, is our next board meeting will be February 7th, and the City of Sebastian council meeting will be February 8th. So I didn't know if you still wanted to go down that track, or if you wanted something to go over to the City of Sebastian sooner than February 7th.
That I can amend that to make it sooner, and we could all be copied on it before, or while it's on its way.
Perfect, thank you.
I will happily amend my motion, or second.
Okay, you're okay with that too? Okay. All right, so the motion has been redone by both the initiator and the seconder. Is that a word?
It is now.
That's right. That we have a motion. Anybody from the public wish to comment on the motion? Come forward, give your name and address for the record, please.
Graham.
Good morning. My name is Graham Cox. I live at 1213 George Street in Sebastian, and in the same neighborhood that we're talking about 21,000 new folks coming to join me. I'm delighted, Bob, that you are here today to be part of this discussion, because I think what you've said so far is just so illuminating as to what we need to do. We need data. We've had letters from the conservation groups, 3 of them in November and December, saying here's what we'd like to see, but we're not getting there isn't the data for us to really say what's the impact going to be in this thing. I really appreciate the comments that the county attorney has made and support them totally. I'm glad to see that the county is exerting some leverage so that we can get everybody to the table and talk some more about what should be in the agreement. We have met with Mr. Bass and talked about all these same topics. When I say we, it was Tim Glover and myself. But for just about all the questions we asked, he pushed it back to the city and said, talk to the city. It's not my, it's not my plan yet. We don't have a plan, but talk to the city. And that's what we're trying to do. At the last meeting that we attended a few days ago, I was gavelled out of order simply by suggesting that we need another workshop and we need another draft of the annexation agreement. Evidently, that was not a popular suggestion. But I really will insist on that we really need to talk this. I don't know what the rush is. I really would like to see the reasons for the rush and why. I know it's gone for a long time, a couple of years, but a few more months getting the agreement right and protecting the citizens who are already there is the important thing. Annexations have been described as a Ponzi scheme. I hate to think that that's going to be the fate of this one. We really need to get down to detail as to what's going to be there, what the impact is going to be, what the traffic's going to be, what the water situation. I remind you, we're in the headwaters of the St. Sebastian River. You mess it up there and you got an impact on the river and the lagoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? Name and address.
I am Dan Lamson. I'm the Executive Director of the Indian River Neighborhood Association. Thank you very much for bringing this up. I think it's really important because, at some point, we're not going to have enough water for everything we want to do. And I don't know when that is, but the question that the council member asked, is the county ready to serve this area if 10,000 houses went there? No, because it's not in the urban service area. So there's no expectation that the county would serve that area. So I can totally see where you're coming from, and I think it needs to be clarified further. So thank you for bringing it up. And also, there's a lot of concerns, as Mr. Cox said, and other people are going to probably talk about. And one issue that was near and dear to my heart was affordable housing, which in the version of the annexation agreement that you all saw in December, versus the one that came out in late January, the amount of affordable housing required was reduced. And this is a great opportunity for encouraging a development to have affordable housing, because you're not going to make affordable housing unless it's kind of required and if it's forced, because it doesn't make you as much money as nice villas and condos and things. So there's a lot of issues that we still have with this, and I agree that there's not really a hurry. It's been a couple of years since they tried to annex originally, and so I think we just need more time to really look at everything and get all these pieces that we're not sure about together. So thank you for bringing this up, and I hope that they take it seriously.
Thank you. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, thank you for allowing us to speak on this issue. I appreciate it very much. I really appreciate Alexis, you supporting our projects with her stormwater. We're trying to educate the people on what we need to do with our stormwater, and the kids are our salvation. They're learning, and Alexis does such a terrific job. I appreciate Dylan coming to the meeting in Sebastian. He is
Excuse me,
in
Dr.
county
Beck, we know your
support.
name, but the clerk needs to hear it.
Pardon?
Name and address, the clerk needs to hear
Sorry.
it.
Richard Baker. I live actually on the Sebastian River, and so I see it all the time, and it is degrading. I've been paddling on it for 40 years. I've seen, you can't see the seagrasses that are at the bottom anymore on it. I've had manatee die right in front of my house, and I had to turn it over to I collected it and turned it over to the proper authorities. We're losing our manatees. I see them crawling up on the shore to get food. They come out of the water, half their body is out of the water to eat. And I see our fishes dying too. And so we're in real trouble. The lagoon, the river, and I think a lot of it is on our ordinances. We need stronger ordinances. I appreciate for the turtles, the gopher tortoise, and I have those on my yard too. But I appreciate Sebastian having a stronger ordinance for saving them. But we got to save the animals that are in our water too. And the water has been the big issue here, and it's contaminated. It's not. It's all the cities. It's all everybody in the county. And a lot of this contamination is coming from septic tanks and sewers, which we got to take care of. But a lot of it's coming from our yards. 40% of our drinking water, 64% of our drinking water is going on our lawns. And that goes up to 88% in the summertime. So one way we can save a lot of water is to cut back on the amount of grass that we have in our yards. And I would like to recommend 10 to 20%, because the the roots are only 2 inches deep. Native plants go about 12 inches. So, you know, every 3-4 days, evaporation occurs at the top of the soil, and that's why you got to water twice a week, because you have this evaporation of the two. But if you have water down below, in the deeper parts, which the roots of native plants and trees are, you don't need to water them. You can rely on just the normal sequence of rain occurring. So I would like to suggest that before we do much more development, like this huge development that's occurring in Sebastian, that we get our ordinances upgraded, our tree ordinances. We're clear cutting, and we're not replacing the trees that we have in our lawns with trees. We're probably putting in palms. And palms are not trees. They're a grass. They're a totally different plant than a tree. And they get their water differently. And so we need to think about, I think, landscape ordinances and tree ordinances. We need to upgrade those countywide and in all the cities. That will reduce the amount of water that we need to get people to have drinking water. So I would encourage us to do that. And Audubon would like to work with you all on getting these ordinances passed. We'd like to have stronger ones and enforce them too. There's a lot of, if you go up to Collier Creek in the new development, I mean.
We need to we're talking about the annexation.
Okay. I'm just going to say that, though, we're not putting the trees in, we're putting in palms, and you see them in the front yard. And we need to think about that and enforce what we got, too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Commissioners, any further comments, question? Anybody from the public wish to further comment? Okay.
Got someone else.
Hi there. Again, I'm Donna Halloran. I'm also a resident of Sebastian, so I've been closely going to these meetings and listening to them. First, I do want to thank you very much for the opportunity to express our concerns. We would like a show of support, and I certainly have heard it here today. I think about the county responsibilities, the fire, the rescue, the county roads, water, wastewater. We also haven't talked about traffic. I mean, traffic right now using 66 takes me 5 light cycles to go from 66 to cross through 510. I can't even imagine what that's going to be adding to the situation. That's just a minor thing. Certainly, the land use and the annexation agreement should be better specified. I know it's currently agricultural. It's going to be changing to mixed use. And I do feel like we're kicking the can down the road with the rezoning and the site plan that we do not see. We're working with land outside the urban service area, so I understand the obligations that you currently really don't have, the need to design that if that's not going to happen. But this does affect us all. This is not just Sebastian residents, and I hear this at the meeting in the city of Sebastian. Well, don't worry about it. That's Indian River's responsibility. Well, it's all of our responsibility. We all pay taxes. And so to think that this is not my concern or anybody else's concern, that's ludicrous. I would like to say that water is precious, and I know there's a limited amount. We certainly all have issues with that. I do believe we don't have enough information. At this time, it's repeated, certainly after the annexation, the last one, when they were trying to annex 1,000 acres, came back and now they're trying to annex 2,000 acres. Yes, the plan looks a little bit better, but certainly some of the things that we requested are not, are no longer in that. And I certainly have lots of concerns. And just because it's not perfect doesn't mean that we don't work towards perfection. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public wish to comment? Seeing none, Commissioners, we have a motion on the table by Commissioner Lohr to send a letter to Sebastian, I guess, fairly soon, and a second by Commissioner Adams to do so in reference to the county's stance on the annexation update. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes 5-0. Thank you. Counselor, you're good?
Thank you very much for your direction. I appreciate this.
Okay, good. All right, 13B, 2023 committee vacancies and appointments. Counselor, I'll let you take the lead on this, or we just the beach in reference to Beach and Shores?
Yeah, so at the last board meeting pursuant to county resolution, the Indian River County County Attorney had presented a slate of applicants to fill various different positions. It was the request of the board at that January 17th meeting to defer this item 2 weeks and then bring it back on the 31st. Pursuant to the board's direction, the county attorney's office has done so. So we have a slate of roughly 8 people who appear to be interested to fill 2 slots on the Beach and Shore Preservation Advisory Committee. And so with that, I turn it back over to the chair for the discussion on how the board wants to handle these applicants.
Thank you, Counselor. Commissioners, I like to do them, we have 2 spots. Let's do them one at a time instead of putting them both together. And I can tell you, as the Beach and Shore liaison for the commission, I took it upon myself to interview all these people, especially the ones I didn't know. I know Bob Bruce very well, and I know Mike Kopar very well, so I didn't ask them for an interview because they're both well-respected and very, up on current issues in the county, especially with regards to the beach. So that's, Bob, that's why I didn't have you come in and see me, because I knew that already. But we do have other applicants. We have Mr. Michael Soul. We have Shelby Graziani. I think Shelby is here. And Bob is here also. Bob Bruce, Michael Kopar. We had Kevin Borwick, James Beckman, and I believe that's it. Is that all?
So,
and Mr. how you pronounce his name? I don't have it here.
So we had James Beckman, we had Kevin Borwick, we had Bob Bruce, we had Don Carboni, we had Shelby Graziani, Michael Korpar, John Leonard, and Michael Soul.
Right. Who was the last one that just turned it in?
We got one this week from John Leonard, or late last week, early this week.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Mrs. Carboni did not respond to my invitation to be interviewed. I spoke with the gentleman yesterday that the counselor just announced, and a very good conversation with him, and his career was in wildlife, and especially elephants, and he was director of animals at Animal Kingdom in Disney World when open, so very, very fascinating gentleman. Yeah. But I was so pleased to have all good candidates, all people that responded and came in were very well, they've done their homework, they were passionate about what they do, and they really were thrilled with the opportunity. And I explained to each one of them that that this is not my decision. I'm just a liaison that comes before the board, and being as chairman, I can't make a motion on this. But I can tell you that all of them were great candidates. But I took 2 that I preferred, and
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve Michael Korper.
Well, I
wasn't done yet.
I think the chair was still
Hold on, I wasn't
speaking.
done yet. We'll do that in just a minute.
Okay.
Okay, so a couple of them are here. I don't know if they want to speak. Mr. Bruce, do you want to speak? And then we'll go with Mr. Graziani also first.
Bob Bruce. You guys all know that I'm a very heavy beach advocate and turtle advocate. I have been since I moved here in 1988. I sued the Sebastian Inlet and won. So we are now under a technical advisory committee. And hopefully we will be getting more sand from the inlet district as we go forward. That's it.
Ms. Graziani, would you like to speak?
Hi there, everyone. Good afternoon now. My name is Shelby Graziani, and I'm a resident in the city of Sebastian now. I actually just closed on a home up there. And for the last 2-ish years, I've been living in Indian River County, working as a civil engineer on the rise at Kimley Horn. And recently, I have been looking for a way to get more involved in my community and also kind of bring in my environmentalism aspect, and I thought that this committee would be just the right fit for that. The reason that this committee was an interest for me was because of my background doing field technician research on Hutchinson Island for a summer. I was doing some sea turtle research, and now my current development services engineering experience throughout the state of Florida, and ultimately just 25 years of experience being a Floridian. I think that if I were to get your nomination for this spot on this board, it would mean getting a younger perspective on innovative solutions for this type of ecosystem, as well as it would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you both. So commissioners, my choices were, one was Mrs. Graziani, the other was Michael Soul. Michael Soul is FP&L's conservation manager. He lives in Sebastian, and he has an extensive background in environmental stuff with the Department of Environmental Protection. You look at his resume; it's very impressive with regards to what he did with beach renourishment and what he was involved in the past. So. Other than being the liaison, I would be happy with any of the candidates that we have here, but those are just my suggestions. Obviously, I can't make a motion on that, but I will entertain, for the first spot, I'll entertain a motion, and Commissioner Voss has already made a motion for Mr. Kopar.
Well, and Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to say, I know we had the opportunity to hear Bob Bruce. In this presentation, I don't know how many of you have gotten all the backgrounds, the resumes for any. I think yesterday we were able to get them. But in hearing Bob, I was recanting his involvement way back at Save Our Shores. And none of you were here. I believe that Commissioner Adams was we were out in Fellsmere at the time as mayor. I tell you, Bob Bruce worked hard with the old Save Our Shores, the Bill Glenn machine, to get money, to get funded for the largest on-taking of sand in the history of Indian River County. See, these are things he doesn't say. He's an engineer by trade and a resident for many years right there in Summer Place. He was a driving force. And I met Bob during some conversations with Bill Glenn, and I saw how much passion he had, and he did mention something about a suit, but he also was the driving force for us to get over half of that money. I don't remember the exact figure. It was millions of dollars that we were able to secure to restore our beaches and it was quite controversial. It moved forward. Thank you, Bob. With that, I'd like to nominate Bob Bruce for consideration on the Beach and Shores.
Madam Vice Chairman, any comments?
Yeah, the comments that I would make is that I think that the Beaches and Shores Committee right now has a lot of technical things going on with it. Between the next item that's coming up, between the advocacy for funding, between permitting, and all those things coming down the pipe, there's going to be a larger role that committee needs to play. So for me, when I looked at the applications and the resumes, Mr. Soul definitely jumped out at me. He has experience at DEP in that permitting process, and to the extent that we're going to need somebody to help us with our permits and with advocating on a state level, I think that he would be a fantastic choice. The other thing I'll say is, as the liaison, when we did this last meeting, we kind of deferred to those liaisons of the committees. You have taken the opportunity and the time to interview everybody, so I would put greater weight on the candidates of which you feel more comfortable with. So I know that you want to take these one at a time, but I'd like to make the motion to nominate Mr. Soul and Ms. Graziano.
Commissioner, before I open to you, we also in the Beach and Shores, we're struggling with a quorum at times. We were always seem to make just the minimum. We have some members that doesn't show up. That's another matter also. And lately, because we've lost Dave Barney, who was very vocal, and Mark Tripson, who was also very vocal in this, and a few others that haven't had great attendance lately, which that's another matter that I think that Chairman Farrell will take up at a later date. We need more input and energy in this committee because of exactly what Commissioner Adams said from the technical aspect we're dealing with. Beach and Shore just is not supposed to be completely beach renourishment, but guess what? That takes up all our time because Mother Nature has made it that way, and we're dealing with that. So that's an aspect that we're having with that. So that's just any further comment I had. Commissioner Lohr, any comment on this?
Yes, sir. I think Mr. Soul certainly jumps off the page for you. I believe he was executive director of DEP, and as well as the secretary. So I think if we go one at a time, I think we may have a consensus here on Mr. Soul first.
Okay. I agree with Let's do it this way. We have a Commissioner Moss. You want to speak?
I agree. I was impressed by Mr. Soul's resume, and I did look at everything, the applications and the resumes that were submitted. One thing I will mention, and I agree with the chair about Mr. Corper, he's working on it every day, Beach and Shores. I mean, he's the property owners association manager for Johns Island, which was very hard hit. That sector was very hard hit. So he's very knowledgeable about everything that's going on. He's current. He's working on getting money from FEMA to address the damages that were sustained there, which were quite substantial. So I'm in agreement with the chair on Mr. Corper, but Mr. Soul certainly is an excellent candidate as well. I mean, I think they would be, either one would be very, very good.
Commissioner Lohr, if you were making a motion for Mr. Soul, if that was your intention, I would be happy to second that.
That's what I was going to do. I will tell you that the issue with, not to get off subject a little bit, but I think it's relevant to what you said with Mr. Kopar. He's a fine gentleman. I've known him for a long time, and I think the world of him. That sector is in a very difficult, and Eric is here, and I think he explained it very well to the Beach and Shore the other day, and especially to Councilman Smith, who's a representative from Many River Shores, about the I guess to make it short, between the rock and the hard place that we're in between Sector 4 and getting it done, and any efforts that we can make, whether it's Indian River Shores contacting the state, whether it's us contacting the state, I know we're trying very hard, and I made the statement in the meeting that we're doing whatever we can to make sure that eventually we can get sand, but we're not. Eric, Rich, please correct me if I'm wrong, we're not to that point yet. We've got any sort of, clear-cut path to restoring Sector 4 yet. Would that be clear?
Rich Berger, Public Works Director. We are going down a path with Sector 4 as we are with all of our other sectors, but we continue to have DEP send us information of how the $4 million was allocated. That was a big thing at the Beach and Shores meeting. So DEP has told us that they are rewriting the grant process, and they're going to allocate certain dollar amounts to each one of the sectors, 1 through 5 and 7. 6 and 8 did not see anything significant, and they will not be allocated part of that $4 million. So the staff was originally doing the same thing, but now DEP is going to make it a requirement of the grant. Furthermore, we're still trying to get with FEMA and figure out how we're gonna, if they're gonna pay us to do any dune restoration, and we're still working on that, and we're on all of our sectors. And we're still working, of course, we got beaches. We got to keep the two separate. So we're doing everything we can. We're constantly talking to DEP and FEMA. We meet bi-weekly with FEMA on a phone call and DEM from the state. And beaches are the thing right now. And sand is not readily available. So we're running into roadblocks that we just, and hurdles that we just keep trying to jump over and run through.
Okay, thanks. Again, this is technically not to get off the subject of what the matter before us, but I think it was important that since it was brought up like that we are working jointly, and this is one of the technical aspects that this committee is dealing with, and for that we need direction to advise this board, and that's their duty. So, okay, we'll do it this way then. We have a motion for the first spot by Commissioner Lohr to accept Michael Soul. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Adams. Anybody from the public wish to comment on the nomination of Michael Soul to the Beach and Shore Committee? Seeing none. Commissioners, all those in favor of accepting the Michael Soul to the Beach and Shore Committee, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Michael Soul is the first one. The next one we've had Commissioner Fleischer, do you want to?
Well, I did want Bob Bruce to be considered. Some of the things you pointed out are clear, and I believe Commissioner Adams as well, as far as the technical aspects that are coming about. But maybe I'm thinking of the past challenges and past fights and the past wins. And I do remember the abilities and the commitment that Bob Bruce made during the past discussions. We just lost two long-time members of the Beach and Shores. We lost a lot of institutional knowledge. And I think that you were actually saddened when one had said he was leaving, because, and I was too. I know Commissioner Adams served, I served, you're serving on Beach and Shores. When you have that deep, esoteric commitment, it goes a long way. And I believe Bob Bruce can have that now as he had it then. So I want to nominate Bob Bruce.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Again, just going back to my past comments of having interviewed and being the liaison, and I give great weight to that. I think Mr. Bruce has been involved with the beach issue for many, many years, and I have every faith that he will continue to be an advocate for the beaches, whether he is on beaches and shores or not. I know he's been involved with TAC, and I would expect him to remain involved in that issue because I know it's near and dear to his heart. However, I also feel like we have a really good opportunity to bring up that next generation of advocates with Ms. Graziano, who also has a lot of that technical background, and still take advantage of the fact that Mr. Bruce will be involved in those conversations, whether he's on the committee or not, which is another reason why I would like to go ahead and nominate Ms. Graziani for Beaches and Shores. I think we would benefit from having the new experience learn from the old experience while still having Mr. Bruce in the community as an advocate.
Any further nominations before we take them in order?
Well, how are we working it? Because I nominated Mr. Corper first, so I'm not sure where we are in the scheme of things.
Let's see, do you want to nominate Mr. Copar again? For the-
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
okay,
definitely.
all right. All right, let's take them one at a time. We have a nomination for Mr. Bruce.
I'll second.
Do we have a second? Do we have a nomination for Mr. Bruce, second by Commissioner Lohr? Anybody wish to comment? Seeing none, all those in favor of appointing Bob Bruce to the Beach and Shore Committee signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. That fails 3-2. Next one we have is Mrs. Graziani. A motion by by Commissioner Adams to nominate Mrs. Graziani for the position. I will second that. Anybody in the audience wish to comment on this nomination? Seeing none, all those in favor of Mrs. Graziani on the Beach and Shore signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Yes, what was your vote?
I was on the beginning side.
I'm sorry?
I was an aye.
Okay.
I mean, count to three.
Yeah,
gotta
aye.
go
It's
four,
fine. Aye.
Gotta go 5.
So am I hearing a unanimous vote? Okay. All right.
It's our mantra.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Let's do it one more time. Okay.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion passes 5-0. No need to move on to the next one, I don't believe. Is that correct, Counselor?
Thank you very much for your consideration. I will pass along this to all the folks who take care of our committees, especially Christine in my office, who does a great job of just keeping track of stuff. So thank you.
Mr. Bruce, thank you. Ms. Graziani, congratulations. You and Mr. Soul have been duly appointed to the Beach and Shore Committee. Thank you. Okay, moving on, the last item of the day, and we're about 30 minutes over, my guess, but the proposed, this is under my items for the proposed cover letter and revised beach renourishment project easement. Commissioners, this is the last hurrah for Sector 7 that we do. I think I've brought this before you maybe three times in the last year. And it hasn't been an easy thing to do to try to get easements. We've got maybe one more since probably we talked before. I don't know whether it'll happen or not, but by working with Dylan and working with staff on revising the easements per the request of some of the folks that live in that area, and the fact that maybe Hurricane Nicole did us a favor and opened their eyes a little bit. I don't know if that or not, but I respect their wishes, but I think that it's important that we try to do the right thing and we try to get this done and get the 90%. So if and when it becomes available, we can use the money to renourish Sector 7 as needed and do that. So I'm not going to dwell on this. Y'all know the drill. We've talked about this numerous times. The Beach and Shore has sent it back to y'all per the request. They agree with it. And so my request is that we approve this cover letter and the revised easement. We have Coastal Division along with commission staff mail these out under my signature as chairman and as Beach and Shore liaison to send it to to the no's and the maybes in Sector 7 and see if they'll sign it and we can reach the 90% threshold. If not, I guess we'll do this all over again someday in the future. So with that, I'll leave it with y'all. Any questions of me or any questions of staff or anything?
Well, I did, and thank you. This has been a long process. I still believe that those that have their feet in the sand where their toes are sticking on the other side of the planet are not going to change.
You may very well be right, but we're giving it the college try.
However, I believe that this may move the needle.
I hope so.
And I'm encouraged by that, just talking to some folks, that if they had the ability not to have to read that ugly word of perpetuity, I think there is an embracement. I believe it can happen. So it's a good try, it's a good punt. My question is this, and I've had some minor discussion. We've already asked those others, those that have committed already, to do so in perpetuity. The individuals who might say, hey, wait a minute, I had to sign off on this, now this is a different kind of sign off. How would we treat that if somebody wants to be treated in the same direction as the current standard?
That's a great question. I think I can answer it by saying that this agreement doesn't say perpetuity in it, but it's the same. It was based on the same agreement, and I'm actually for sure let the counselor speak his share on this before we move forward on action. But this is patterned after the same agreement that Comcast, AT&T, FP&L, any of those type of people would use, except this really talks about beach renourishment and the fact that we want to renourish the beach as needed and protect the sea turtles and be able to monitor those sea turtles. It doesn't say perpetual in it. Council,
But,
I guess you could assume it could be perpetual, or you could unassume it could be perpetual, but it's basically the language we pulled from those companies such as AT&T, FP&L, Comcast, whoever may need to be on your property to service your utilities or your property in some form or fashion. That's where we do it from. So
I admired the drive. I think it might move the needle, as I said, but I want it to be crystal clear to those individuals have already been engaged. I know we're going to get confronted with the question. I know it's going to be, hey, there's a change. Can I get in on the change? Even if the change does not alter much of anything, it still is a change.
right, and I think if somebody comes back to us and says, well, y'all have a new agreement, I want to sign that, then we'll present them that new easement and have them sign that. I mean,
Then it would be a $40 filing fee, and they would have to file it and get engaged.
They request that. I don't see us getting many
I
requests.
just want the public to know exactly what they may be exposed
No, it's
to.
a good question.
Counselor, right?
Couple different comments on that. First off, it does say that the covenants, rights, restrictions, and reservations and easement herein set forth are and shall run with the land. So that's kind of a permanent sort of type of language,
Sounds kind
which
of
is
like
good.
perpetuity.
The letter states that we will get replies no later than March 17th, 2023. So we're talking about a month and a half from now. My thought is, let's see where we come with regards to easements coming back. Let's say if we get one back, then there's probably really not much to do about it. If we get a huge flood of them coming in, then it might be a good discussion of, hey, we got all these, how do we want to treat Sector 3 and Sector 5 and the others in Sector 7? So maybe we don't need to make that decision today as to how the other sectors or folks will be handled. Probably want to figure that out as we get responses. And if that's okay with the board, if that makes sense.
Works for me.
I just wanted to clarify, because the rules of engagement are a little adjusted, and those might want to participate in the new rules.
Yeah, and I think that'll be determined based upon what impact we get, what input we get back from the folks. Because I could understand if we got one easement back of the new style, it's not going to get Sector 7 done. So there's really no point at that point to upset the apple cart with regards to just trying to, with that one easement. But if we get a bunch of them in, then it really changes the equation.
Thank you, Council.
Any further comments or questions of me or Counselor before I turn it over to him? Counselor?
So this is a conversation I've had with Commissioner Ehrman before, but I just want to state it publicly. I think, hopefully I've had this discussion at the Beach and Shore meeting as well. In my mind, there are three ways to protect the public's right to use the beach. One is through if we get an easement that preserves that right. Two is if under the statute, and it's referenced in the easement, that if we do a beach renourishment project and our sand is on the beach, on a private property, then the public still has the right to use that area. Now, there's a question if the sand disappears, which happens after hurricanes and nor'easters and the like, arguably under the statute, that the public may lose the right to utilize those statutory rights. And then finally, the third one is kind of through a customer use style lawsuit, which we have filed in Summer Place, and we have learned under this new statute, and Walton County has learned under this new statute, it is quite cumbersome, difficult, and certainly not easy to follow, that if we do go through the aspect of going through a new easement process that doesn't include the protection of the public's right to use the beach, then we fall back on those other two avenues of protection for the public. And I just want to make sure that's clear for the board as a policy decision as we move forward under this concept.
Commissioner, any questions of Counselor? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
So move it.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Lohr, second by Commissioner Adams. Anybody from the public wish to comment on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes 5-0. Thank you, Commissioners. Which, like I said, this is the last hurrah. We'll see where it goes, and hopefully we have good news and come back from there. Any further thing to come before the board today? All right, don't everybody run off. I guess we're getting our pictures done somehow, somewhere. So with that, thank you, Commissioners, and thank you, public, for the meeting today, and the meeting is adjourned.